Business on.
All right, it is now 7:35. Good evening, fellow commissioners and the general public. My name is Mike Champness. I'm the chair of the Transportation Advisory Commission. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the county website and on YouTube. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by new state legislation and FOIA, the Transportation Advisory Commission needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of this commission is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all the other members. I ask each of you to pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. I'm asking each commission member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating when I mention your name. At large, Linda Sperling.
Yes, this is Linda Sperling, and I am participating from my home in beautiful, scenic Clifton, Virginia.
And that is. Okay. Braddock District, Kevin Morse.
Present from Burke.
Okay. Cranesville District, Mike Champness, I am here. Hunter Mill District, Kelly Westenhoff. As we discussed, she's not here this evening. Mason District, Roger Hoskin. Okay, Roger's not here yet. Mount Vernon District, Pete Sitnick.
I am here and I'm sitting in my office in Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon.
Roger is here. I just don't think he heard you.
Okay, Roger, are you here, sir? Are you here, sir? Oh, I see his picture. That's obviously very much Roger. Can you communicate, Roger? Send up a flare, let us know you can hear us.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can now hear you.
Okay, we're all set.
Roger Hoskin is here. And Roger, where are you calling from?
Falls Church, in the heart of Mason District. Well, maybe some other body part, but that's all.
Okay. All right. Lee District, Alexis Glam.
Alexis is here in Alexandria.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alexis. Providence District, Jeremy Hancock. Okay. Jeremy's not here yet. We'll see if he shows up later. Springfield District, Eric Thiel. Okay. And Sully District, David Skiles. Okay, and the final one is Fairfax Area Disability Services Board, Mary Pauline Jones.
I am here from my home in the town of Herndon.
Sounds good. Okay, quick to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are 6. Party is 6. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chair Jones so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion.
Thank you. I accept the virtual gavel. I now recognize Commissioner Champness.
Thank you. I move that we have determined that each member's voice can be adequately heard by each other member of the commission. It is so moved.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Yes,
Second.
It has been second. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. I next move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the commission to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. I further move that this commission may conduct the meeting electronically through a dedicated audio conferencing line and that the public may access this meeting by WebEx online platform or by calling 1-415-655-0001 or 1-844-621-3956, toll free, and entering the access code 2338-029-2429. The phone number of ADA is 711. The access information is also available at the TAC website. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you again. Finally, I move that all of the matters on the agenda previously furnished and posted on the TAC website are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government and/or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations in the discharge of this commission's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It is seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. We will now start the tax business per the approved agenda. Thank you very much. I don't have many remarks. I do want to just say thank you very much for the commission members who came both to Jeff Parnes' ceremony, where we gave him the Lifetime Achievement Award, and we also handed out the TAC Award, the 2020 TAC Award, to the Relay team. That commissioner was actually Kevin Morris. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us and showing the flag there and participating. Also on the 9th, a good number of us participated in the relay tour. Thought it was very good, very productive. I'll talk about it a little bit later with some follow-on activities, but there are some things we'll probably want to do, coming out of that into the next year. And then of course we also had a social event where we actually socialized and talked to one another. Pete and I brought our significant others with us, which helped ensure that we did not stray into too much into business. In fact, not at all. But it was a very good event, and look forward to trying to do some similar events in the future when commissioners can get together and get to spend some time together. We'll look for those kind of opportunities. With that, I'd like to welcome any public and guests. I think we're looking at Brent and Calvin, I think, are once again the lone extra folks with us. I know Noelle said she might not be able to join us because she had some activities this evening. So Brent and Calvin, thanks for being with us. Not like you had much choice, but very much appreciated.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right. I think that's all we have right here. So with that, let's move on to the previous meeting minutes. They were distributed previously. I think our new, skinny down minutes there makes it easier to sort of look at them there. Does any, I think we should probably have a motion to approve that we can discuss. So I'd be willing to entertain a motion to approve the November minutes. If somebody's willing to make such a motion.
So moved.
So moved. I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll give Kevin the credit for this one. And Mary Pauline, you want to second it then?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay. We've motion on the floor and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. I would ask, as usual, that any technical and performing changes would need to be adopted afterwards. But is there any discussion on the motion?
I just thought they were very well written and concise.
That's very nice to hear. Appreciate that, Kevin.
That's our anorexic version of the TAC meeting somewhere.
I think they were fine, just right.
All right. Sounds good. And there's always the recordings for those who really want to parse things out. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the minutes for November? Hearing none, I would like to call up for the vote then. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right. Hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes is adopted unanimously. So thank you very much, Roger, for putting them together and a way that we can adopt them quickly and move on to the next order of business. So,
Actually, I'm getting pretty good at this.
all right.
We probably should have been doing it this way for years.
No comment, but I won't disagree. And thank you, Roger. Appreciate it very much you picking this up. Okay. We're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so that's good news. I did want to start off with the TAC work plan. And I apologize for not being able to send it out sooner. Calvin, moments ago, I think we started the meeting about 10 minutes ago, so maybe about 11 or 12 minutes ago is when Calvin sent out the work plan. So yes, I was working on it to the last minute. There's always, a few things going on. But I would have liked to have been to folks sooner. So yes, we could incorporate the conversation. What I really wanted to do was sort of explain it a little bit, have some initial conversation, and then we'll convene again to, I don't think we need to approve it tonight. I'm not going to approve it necessarily, but I do want to get your feedback. And then we'll talk at the end of the conversation about what happens next and what some of the other steps are. But if I could ask folks to please look at the work plan that I just put out. Yes, it's a 2022 work plan because it's almost 2022 now. It looks somewhat similar to to what we had before, but I have rearranged things and I have reorganized the categories a little bit. Thank you, Kelvin. Appreciate you putting that up there. The guiding principles are much the same as before. And I was considering just sort of getting into sort of the focus area discussion. And I realized that I think it'd be helpful to have these as guiding principles as we go forward. So they're much the same as before. But what I've also done is, as I went through the last version of the plan, the September version, and tried to incorporate things and rearrange things, which we'll very much get into in the focus areas. There was some things I felt would be helpful to move up to guiding principles. One of the things we'll find is that I had sort of an implementation strategy section. That is all gone now. And the reason that's gone is because I've tried to incorporate it into the focus areas as part of what we're doing here. I know we've talked many times about the importance of, and it's unfortunate that Kelly and Jeremy are with us right now. And Jeremy, I don't know if you've joined us yet. They've been very vocal about that, as has a number of other commissioners. I know Kevin, you've talked about it as well too. But it is with that implementation and that taking next steps in mind that I've tried to integrate that into the plan. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute. So what I've done is tried to identify the area, our primary focus areas. And these are primarily those things that have been highlighted in the previous paper. I've done some rearranging and some honing down and things like that. What you'll also see is I've added lead commissioners and outreach partners. And of course, this is all draft. It says draft right on the paper, but it is based upon the conversations we've had both individually and collectively about who would be involved, who'd be willing to be involved, and some of the groups that we've been working with. That's kind of where the implementation strategy starts to emerge, is we have commissioners that have agreed to focus on certain areas, who can dive into these areas in more detail, flesh things out as we go forward, and work with other partners, work with Fcdot to help bring somewhat vetted issues to the TAC, so that we can talk about it and try and make some determinations and decide how the TAC as a group would like to proceed. So in the first focus area, I actually split this into two. This was sort of vehicle congestion mitigation. The transit-oriented development was part of vehicle congestion mitigation. But I think as we've looked at this, it certainly felt to me over the past few months or so that there was a warranted focus on more transit-oriented development. And you can pick lots of different phrases for some of these things. And so I've got making place in there. You can maybe make that a title. We can sort of discuss that. I don't want to get into too much detail now, but of course, with all of this, nothing's cast in stone. But the idea is making a place, making a location that we're designing and focusing development that's transit oriented, which really talks about trying to minimize road, extra cars on the road and things like that. Although, back to a guiding principle, not everything applies equally everywhere. We've got to be mindful of that. But the making place is in there. The road design parameters, complete streets. Obviously, we were talking about that last week, but we talked last month, and we've also talked about it previously. Each of these items here, in my view, are things that we look at. These are not conclusions, these are not recommendations. It is over the course of next year's work that we will try and make some recommendations in each of these areas. What a complete street definition ought to be, where it ought to be applied first, acknowledging where it is being applied. And quite honestly, after the meeting we had last month, it looked like they were starting with the sort of 7 trying to think activity centers, 7 activity centers. And so there we are, target the 7 activity centers first. So those are sort of things that that we look at, can look at, confirm that we see what's going on, then decide what kinds of adjustments we want to make. The other piece of vehicle congestion mitigation, I've really sort of focused right now on sort of the transportation demand management. Before I move on, I did just want to point out as we go through, as I said, I've identified specific commissioners. This first one is Commissioner Sitnick, Commissioner Hoskin. You know, Pete, we've talked about this and know that the complete streets and the making place is something you've been very interested in. And Roger, you know, appreciate you agreeing to participate in this area previously. And actually, there are some parking things going on, particularly I'm going to raise later in the meeting. But that was one of the reasons, of course, they have you in this piece right here, sort of road and parking and things like that. Congestion mitigation focused mostly on transportation demand management. I've added a few pieces in there. The Tyson's Transportation Management Association is starting to do some work. So I've been involved in some of their conversations. You know, we've talked about encouraging continued telework, balancing with the return to work plans. The Tyson's group is looking at reverting a proper strategy. There are other groups that are probably going to do that. So we have an opportunity through me to be involved in that conversation. We'll almost certainly bring them in at some point to talk to us about what's going on. They welcome the opportunity. And in fact, that will also tie into our, you know, the topic areas we talk about next year, is we want to tie them to the work plan. So that when we get to a point where there's something that we need to either give the TAC an update on, or maybe we're set to make some kind of determination, a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, or something that it's important for the TAC to understand what the issue is we're wrestling with. We bring that back to the TAC through they come out of the work plan. We bring those up as a topic in a future meeting. We just put that on the agenda. I've left myself here alone for now. Somebody's certainly welcome to join me if they want. But also there's other areas, other commissioners that don't have assigned responsibilities yet. And there's also maybe some other things that grow out of this. So we don't have to all jump on something right away, but I do appreciate as commissioners step up and join in. I've identified some of the partners, you know, Tyson's Transportation Management Association, Dulles Area Transportation Association, you know, things like that. And this again ties into the outreach strategy where we're working with others to inform ourselves about what's going on, maybe influence some of their deliberations, have them influence some of our deliberations. Again, we're sort of working together and partnering with others, and that's a key part, I think, of the implementation strategy. Trails, sidewalks, and bikeways. I've left the title here for as it was previously. The active Fairfax plan is here. I've talked about pedestrian and bike safety. I know this is a big interest item of a number of us, and of course, not least of which the 2 commissioners that have graciously agreed to be, you know, helping coordinate this for us, you know, Kelly and Alexis. And so this here again is sort of pulling some things together, but ultimately the idea would be that in this case it'd be, you know, Commissioner Westenhoff, Commissioner Glenn would take this and run with it and change it. These focus areas might not be the most important, they might not be the most timely. That's what hopefully the work will be done over this next year with whatever level of involvement and engagement you're able to provide with, you know, with the time you've got. We've got trails on there as well. And then of course outreach partners. I know the Fairfax Alliance for Better Biking is one of them. I know there are others too, but we can add those to the list as we go forward. Strategies and policies is a little bit different in that we're looking at strategies and policies, but the idea here is that because this is a government organization, because strategies and policies are very important, you know, and documents that guide what the county is going to be doing, it's important for us to speak in those documents. The one we've focused on primarily so far is the comprehensive plan. And so, you know, that is you're going to probably remain the primary one, although the strategic plan is important too, as are the other ones there. You know, there might be some other strategies and policies, letters and things like that. This is a bit more, again, sort of that policy side there. Jeremy has agreed to be involved in this area, help us sort of coordinate these things here. And this is another one of those places we look at and places we work to try and identify the, you know, some steps that we need to take. What I've done in the next area, areas to monitor, these are the previous um, priority areas that had not been highlighted, we haven't been talking about as much, but of course we don't want to forget. And so I had more description on the previous version of the paper. I took it off for this because we're putting them in one sort of category, but those issues and focus and those issues associated are still there. I just didn't put them on the paper. But the major legacy investment improvements, all of the 495, the 66 Metro and things like that. Flexible non-POV transportation, which is sort of buses and Ubers and things like that. And then also, monitoring new transportation technologies. And there's actually a good example in here of something that, while not highlighted as prominently as the earlier part of the focus area discussion, I think relay could very well be part of this. Because it certainly is a new emerging technology we've been involved in. I think I'm sure we'll remain involved. So, it doesn't mean that if a topic area, a particular topic piece or whatever is not in the focus area, it doesn't mean we don't look at it. It's just we're trying to focus our efforts on certain areas. What I've also done is really just sort of listed outreach partners. And so it's kind of a menu a little bit there. I start with Fcdot because we work with them most closely. In fact, it's kind of an odd situation because they're almost so close. It's not a sort of an outreach partner per se, although clearly as someone that we consult with, they're number one. VDOT and various bodies and things like that. The idea here is not that they're going to reach out to everybody simultaneously, but that we reach out to those groups that are involved in things that we're working on when we're working on them to include them. And so that's the idea of having some of those groups that I've picked out, only a couple, and the Fairfax Alliance for Better Biking, I don't think it's actually listed in the outreach partner, but we know about that group, and so that's why I put it on the list. And so really, the outreach partners is almost a Chinese menu, so to speak, to choose from, and then you take a partner there and you move them into the focus area and to work with them to help move some things forward. That's really the idea. And so my thought for presenting to the board is to tell them these are the areas we plan to look at. These are some of the things within those areas we plan to look at as well. And what we'd like to do is come back with some recommendations for possible improvements in these areas. Stay the course, make an adjustment here, bring something else in. I think that's exactly the kind of thing the board would like us to do. I don't think we commit to making changes, recommendations in every area. There might not be much we need to act on, but we'll see about that as we go forward. So with that, that's the introduction. Again, appreciate everybody's patience. Sorry for not being able to send it out sooner to have a look at, but did just want to get folks' initial thoughts on the structure here, the general way ahead that we're talking about here.
Well, I'd like to suggest that maybe it would be politic on our part to ask the supervisors what they think we ought to be looking at. It may cover this, they may have some other ideas. And if we meet with the transportation staff from our various supervisors' office in January, this might be a good place to gather some intelligence about what's on their mind. There may be some things here that we might want to add or modify based on what the supervisors think we ought to be doing. I think we've covered the waterfront here, but they may have a particular place where they think we really need to pay special attention. And then I'm going to stick my thumb in the middle of this right now.
Okay.
Street light replacement. What do you mean by that? Is this fixing burned out light bulbs, or are we placing new street lights on streets and avenues that don't have them? And I suspect that one of the things you may run into, I know in this neighborhood on the other side of the lake, we don't talk to them. You're coming down Dearborn Drive, it's dark. There are no street lights there. And the people down there don't want them. I think it's a little short-sighted. And over on Lakeview Drive, they have places where they don't want them. So I don't think the supervisors are going to force streetlights into neighborhoods that don't want them. and we may run into this. I can't imagine why you wouldn't, but there are different views on this. Some people really like that kind of rustic country feel, and people that live in other neighborhoods may be able to tell me whether you have streetlights or not. The other thing I've noticed that in our neighborhood is that Dominion is already replacing a lot of our streetlights with LED bulbs.
Mhm.
We had a practice. Any citizen can report an outed streetlight. It would be good for people to know how to do this. Because Dominion's actually pretty good about getting these lights fixed if they're burnt out. And if you don't tell them, they may never know. So it's the citizens that report burnt out lights. It's how they get repaired. We had one in our neighborhood that was burnt out for months. Finally went down and reported it, and within about 10 days it was fixed. So you can do that. And I think that the movement to LED bulbs is going to really enhance the reliability of these things. But you're going to probably run into some refusements that just don't want them.
I agree. And if I could, Roger, to respond, starting with streetlights first and then back to the commissioners, the supervisors. Yes, I think these are all aspects of streetlight replacement. This was actually something that Mr. Alcord and Shamali had mentioned a while ago that I know is an interest item of his. And so I don't remember exactly which piece of it was. I know part of it is replacement LEDs and things like that. Making sure they're, that bike trails and pedestrian areas are safely lit. So I think all of those are part of it. And those are exactly the kind of things that the folks in this section would want to look into and see what might need to get done. But back to your point about the supervisors, I agree, and it is actually part of the plan that if we have if we're able to have the transportation aides come join us in January, we would present with TAP concurrence. We'll talk about that a little bit later here. Present this work plan as updated through the with comments to them in January and say this is what we're thinking about. Obviously we want to know what the supervisors think. So if you have comments, suggestions, we'd love to do that. I think what we could very easily perhaps have individual commissioners meet with your supervisor if you have time, if you're able to get on their calendar and talk to them about it, get some of their priorities. It's a good way to sort of start the conversation, but they'll tell and to have them tell us, yes, we like it, or there are parts we'd rather, things want to add to it. And that's exactly what we want to know. It'd be nice if when we go to the transportation committee, all the supervisors are aware of it, have seen it before, have had their comments incorporated, at which point it's a big thumbs up, off we go. If not, obviously, we'll talk about it there. But no, I agree, Roger, completely that we absolutely want to get the supervisors buy-in here as we put this together.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
was your idea with this tonight with at the meeting to discuss kind of the nitty-gritty of wording and things that should be here, things that shouldn't, or are we to take, I think it'd be my preference to take my section with Kelly and get with her and refine it and make some recommendations and then send it back to you rather than kind of wordsmithing it here on the call.
You read my mind. I would love that. I think that's exactly what we'd love to have happen. Because I think that yes, it's important that commissioners in their focus areas have ownership and control, so to speak, over this part. So yes, I would welcome that. I did want to lay it out conceptually, out the piece of it together. I think the details, yes, please. I would welcome it if you would take it offline and get back to me.
All right, will do. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Now, if there are big things you want to mention, feel free, but we can also percolate that and bring it back. We'll talk about the next steps a little later on, but we'll definitely want to make sure that all the commissioners have a chance to see a new version before the transportation aides come. So I promise that if we are having them here in January, would not send out the new version 1 minute before the meeting. We do that. Okay. Any other comments on the plan?
I have a few.
Just one.
Sure.
I saw, and I don't know where, but it was about pedestrian safety and all, which is great.
Mhm.
But there's an increasing need for frankly, road safety of all sorts.
Mhm.
The other night, luckily not in our district, but I saw a young man get hit by a car. And I know that's pedestrian safety, but it's also the way the drivers are driving today. The driver in this case that I saw was exceeding the speed limit, changed lanes at the last minute and hit a young man.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to include all aspects of safety, not just pedestrian, but the vehicle safety too. So that's
Okay.
just one. Yeah.
You're gonna be called as a witness?
No, I was far enough away that I wasn't a witness that way. It took me about 10 minutes to get to the actual site because of the emergency vehicles that arrived.
Wow.
So no, I wasn't super close, but I was close enough to see the vehicle. Well, 3 young men ran across the road. The last one didn't make it.
Mm.
So
It's tough.
yeah.
Well, this is another example of complete streets that we just talked about.
Yes.
Lowering speeds, crosswalks,
Yep.
lights, it's part of the package.
It definitely is, but it's also my point I'm trying to make is that we can engineer the roads to 35 miles an hour, and that's great. But if people are doing 50, it still doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could, Peter, that was a great example, both because of the importance, but also because that is one specific tie that I made in the work plan, which I didn't mention. So this is great to highlight it, between the safety aspects and the trails part and trails group, and the safety aspects in the road area. It's not very artfully done. I say, I've got 4 quadrant crosswalks, as if that's all you need to do. I know you don't.
No.
But so actually, Pete, I'd ask if you and Roger, separately together, could take the transit-oriented development portion, and maybe try and flesh that out a little bit. The one thing I will say is we're not looking for solutions. We're looking for problem framing. Because these are the things we want to take to the Board of Supervisors and say, these are the areas we think we want to work on. Here's some of the issues we see that are related, some of the environmental activities, what's going on around these issues. That's why we think it's important. These are things we're going to try and balance and work through. And so that'll let the supervisors see, yes, we agree it's important, or no, we don't think it's that important, and get a sense for what some of the competing factors are. And during the course of the year, that's when we'll sort of dive in and see what we can do to try and resolve some of them. Maybe we can't, but if we can't, after we've tried, we certainly can frame the issue a lot better. We'll know, well, what is it that's stopping us from doing something? What would need to happen? And those are the kind of specific recommendations you can make to the board about, a well-placed letter, a comment, or this or that, whatever the case may be, to try to move something forward that we would by then would have determined is important. And so we will also need to be mindful of kind of connections. That will come over time. I think it'll emerge, particularly, as we flesh out these areas, both in terms of the problem framing, but also as we get into solutions, because we're trying to look at things holistically. Bicycles ride down streets, so we've got to make sure both of those are covered. And I think by making it explicit, it'll be better prepared to do that.
It works with complete streets. I just wanted to make sure we highlight it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, please do free to throw some of those logs in the fire, so to speak, and we can add that to the paper.
So are you ready for your nattering nabob of negativism from the Braddock district?
I'm always, well, I don't know, never ready, always ready. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I think you well know I'm always concerned about that we spend way too much time talking about what we want to do instead of doing it. So I guess you have to have this work plan, and that's great. But I wouldn't want, I think, even commissioners that I may disagree with, I've yet to see a topic that they want to raise that I have any objection to it being, discussed. So I just don't want to, shorten the leash of any commissioner. Another item is I noticed on the partners, is there a reason we don't have MWA and WMATA on there?
I didn't think to put them on. Let's add them.
And
What were the two again? Sorry.
MWA, the Airport Authority, MWA, and WMATA.
Okay.
I mean, usually at the end of the meeting, we look at topics to discuss. Are we still going to continue that as to what we, want them to meet on next month and the month thereafter?
Absolutely. And what I'm hoping is we're going to have a log jam of topics that will be hard pressed to decide which ones to do. We'll have so much to do that we'll have to make some hard choices. That's my goal.
Okay. And you may recall, I think I sent you and Calvin an email asking me about reaching out to Carla. I couldn't remember her last name.
Yes, Carla Bruce. Yeah.
Which I have not received a response on yet. But in that area, under, I believe, 1 Fairfax, maybe it's under active Fairfax, but I think it's under 1 Fairfax. Transportation from disadvantaged areas to job sites, wherever they are in the county. It's a specific topic that I wanted to bring her in on. See if, in her mind, if we're meeting that.
Yes. Where did I put that? Because I remember working on the topic. There we go. It's under urban design standards. Again, maybe not the best place for it, but at least it's there somewhere.
Okay.
And the idea here is sort of as we have these job centers, these places where we've made place, we retain or enhance access to flexible non-POV transportation options. Again, maybe not the best worded, but the idea there is that is where the buses that primarily come in to make sure that folks that don't live in those areas can get there.
Okay, so you've got it.
At least that's one.
You've got it in the work plan. So when either you or Calvin sends me her contact information, I will reach out to her to discuss the possibility of coming to a TAC meeting.
Absolutely. I would, what I'd like to do, not when we have the logjam of potential topics, we'll have to figure out how we decide, which ones we do, which ones we don't. Right now, we don't have the logjam, so I think it's be an easy thing to have Carla come in. Certainly an easy thing to talk to her and then take it from there. But as we go forward, one of the criteria I think would be sort of how it ties in with other activities. So the extent to which after you talk to her, if it still sort of seems to fit in this transitory development piece there, then that's something we want to complement maybe with the other discussions in the area. That's something we can bring in and talk to her about. So I'm diverting a little bit. I'm supportive of bringing her in to speak. I know you and I talked about that briefly before. And so I still think that's a very good deal. We absolutely can do that.
Okay, we'll see where that goes. I don't know that we may not have a log jam, but I mean, there's always, topics that can be every quarter, like to me, the Dulles Rail, Dulles Airport. We have a lot of new commissioners. If they haven't been briefed on, Dulles Airport. I would like to get that on the agenda.
Okay. I think it probably would behoove us to sort of have a list of those topics we need to periodically loop back on. In my mind, I'd sort of mentally put them in sort of the existing legacy investment type thing. Maybe those aren't the only things we loop back on, but certainly there's some of them. So yes, we need a list of those as well so that we don't forget. I hope it's time to talk about the airport again, or time to talk about Metro again. And we do that every 6 months or a year or whatever the timing is. And obviously, if something comes up, we do it. There's just sort of routine check-in. Maybe we decide when we think that would be a good time.
Hey, Mike, that leads, there is something that I think would be an interesting and relevant addition since we do have so many new commissioners. A few years ago, the TAC, I know Kevin, Mike, myself, I believe Mary Pauline, we went on a tour of the metro construction on the Silver Line and saw the big rail yard being built out there. Well, believe it or not, that was actually 3 years ago.
Oh my God.
I attended a webinar this week put on by the Dulles Chamber. I have a new job and my new boss was presenting on this webinar. And a woman, Marcia McAllister, I believe her name is, presented on kind of the status of the metro project. They say the Silver Line will be ready to roll in like 6 months or so. And she was showing pictures of like the rail yard we went to. And I thought to myself, wow, that really has come along. And then I thought, I would hope so, since 2018. And, that was so educational and so informative that I think, commissioners who weren't on the TAC in 2018 would benefit from another tour like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
especially if the Silver Line really is, going to be moving people and trains within the next 6 months or so.
well, a thought occurs to me that I'll share. Did with the relay event is it was sort of off cycle. We didn't use it. We didn't do it during a normal TAC meeting. We did it sort of during the week, but also afterwards we're able to get together. And so that might be a model for some of them, for some of these tours, that we go visit somewhere and then look for a nearby watering hole, just saying. Because I agree, I would love to be able to get out and see some things. And folks like, the relay team was very pleased that we went to see him. Yes, they're pleased also we gave him the award. That was probably part of it, but they were glad to show off what they were doing. And every time I've been on a tour, folks are glad to show us what they're doing. And so I agree, Linda, I think that's a great idea.
Blackmailing me with my hesitancy to commit to working sessions by throwing the carrot in of a social meeting afterwards. It's unfair.
It's not bad.
Worked with you for so long, I'm starting to understand maybe some ways we can get to you.
There you go.
Very
Mike,
tricky.
a couple more outreach communication partners we may want to look at, or frankly, if we're going to be talking about safety, we probably want to talk about Fairfax County Police Department.
Okay, yeah, there's an idea.
And perhaps the U.S. Park Police, because they're a big item in the non-voting district, and the National Park Service.
Okay.
So just some extra groups.
You have the VRE on there?
Don't see it. It should be.
As a partner or like a tour destination?
That would be fine. By the way, I attended it last night, actually in person, an excellent, the Braddock supervisor hosted a Meet the Commander meeting with the West Springfield police captain. He was there, the captain of the precinct, the commander, his deputy, and two of his outreach officers. So really very informative session.
Okay. Any group person we've worked with. I mean, I think I mentioned, state and local elected officials. As we meet them, and we've met some. I know I have, and many of us, know some of our officials. We can work with them. There's a lot of people we can work with. So this list could get to be very, very long. We might not publish it because eventually, this or something like this, it will be published. This might be something we just have in our hip pocket, and we just mentioned that we'll be reaching out to a lot of folks, and our strategy is to involve them. And that's one of the adjustments I made in the guiding principles. Is I put a little bit more emphasis on sort of soliciting involvement from citizens, advocacy groups, and other outside stakeholders in the conversations based on the issues being addressed. So we really want to reach out, include people, depending on what the topic is that we're talking about. Okay. Any other?
One other,
Yes,
just
please.
to throw it out there, I saw a headline today just in the Post. I didn't even get a chance to read it in one of the online feeds, but with the pandemic, the retail office space, the demand heading downward, the demand for housing always going upward. And so the headline was converting former office space to housing. So, what's the transit impact on that if we go in that direction?
Okay. Actually, could you share that article, Kevin, please? Because this also related to sort of the teleworking and transportation demand management as offices clear out. One of the issues that we've talked about with the Tyson's group is the way historically the county has tried to encourage more transportation demand management are focusing on developers to have proffers for incentives to encourage people not to drive, metro passes, etc. Well, the foundation upon which that was based was a pre-COVID environment where everybody went to work. Right now, not everybody's going to work, and we've talked about this. So, those are very much some of the things we want to be looking at as we try and keep the weight off, so to speak, keep the cars off the road that have been off the road. Although I would admit, you drive around now, it looks like there's a lot of cars that are back out there. But
I'll look for the link. I think it just came out today, and I'll
Okay.
send it to Calvin.
Appreciate that. Okay. Any other comments on the paper, the way ahead? What I think I'll do is what we'd like to do is to say, please give me your comments. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in terms of the next meeting. We've talked about it before. We talked about it here. Trying to have the transportation aides for the Board of Supervisors coming and meet with us. Would like to try and do that on January 18th. That then means we can take the plan, put it together, and then we'll be available, ready to give it to the Board of Supervisors within about a month or so, which is the beginning of the year. And Calvin and I will look for ways to to get on the calendar for that activity. But if we do that, what we're going to need to do is make some adjustments to the plan here, and then get that back for folks to have a look at. Now, I'm not opposed, what I will do is get the paper out to people before. What we can do is if you've got individual comments in your sections or just something you see, it's maybe not in your section, but something you want to make a comment on, please do. I can work individually one-on-one with folks to put together, update the paper. Everybody can see it. I think we can probably do that without having to have a meeting. That said, if I think that there's likely going to be some substantive changes there, and that we encourage that. And so what the option we'll have is everybody will get a chance to see the paper before the meeting on the 18th. What we might not get a chance to do unless we have a work session, and like Kevin, I'm reluctant to have work sessions if we can avoid them. Maybe not quite as reluctant, but I don't want to do it unless we absolutely have to. Particularly coming right back off the new year, and boom, we'd have a work session on the 4th. Now we could do it on the 11th if we wanted, but what I would suggest is let's try and work this electronically. It appears that something is worthy of conversation. If I'm getting conflicting comments or edits from commissioners, where there's been enough changes, I think it's worthwhile to at least let folks know. I can send it out electronically. I can highlight things. Again, we'll get a chance to see it. If we feel we need to talk about it, we'll find a way to do that. Otherwise, what we would do is the next time we would talk about the plan as a group in person, so to speak, electronically, would be on the 18th when the board, when the transportation aides hopefully join us. So I hope that gives us an option to get our comments in, get them looked at. And again, if any commissioner believes we need to get together, you can suggest that to me too. I know Kevin won't, but maybe somebody else might. What I'd ask, if possible, please, is to get comments back on the paper by early next year. I know December's coming. Christmas is coming, as well as the New Year, other holidays. We moved our meeting up this month, so they wouldn't conflict with the upcoming holidays. So I'd ask if you could look at it sooner rather than later, if you have time. Get me comments right away if you can. But what I would do is propose to get the comments back by early January. Maybe sort of close down comments by close of business Monday the 3rd or something like that. Sunday the 2nd, Monday the 3rd, and then what I can do is make some changes there by the end of the week, get it back out, and then we'll see where things stand and we'll see what we do. We won't be able to get together on January 4th, but I don't think that's a big loss. I hope nobody's going to be concerned about that. Any comments about that as a way ahead? Roger? All right. Anybody else there? Okay. I think Roger's gotten very comfortable with the proceedings, so that's good. Okay. That's what we'll do. And I very much appreciate everybody having a look at it. Alexis, thanks for working with Kelly, Pete, with Roger, on your section, so to speak, and any other comments, of course, are welcome. With that,
Mike,
move
just
on
wanted to
go ahead.
note that I was able to join. I apologize for being
Oh,
late.
fantastic. Glad you're here. How much have you heard?
I just heard the very ends there about that we have a deadline of next year.
Yes, I did mention you there. Jeremy, if you want, happy to talk afterwards a little bit, but just to summarize it very briefly, I put out the paper here moments before the meeting, as you know, so there was no expectation that I could have a look at it beforehand. I do have you highlighted in the, Calvin did the highlighting, but identified as the lead commissioner in the strategies and policies area, focusing primarily on the comprehensive plan. That would be the place where we're looking for opportunities to sort of stick some ideas into. And so hopefully, again, meet with the Board of Transportation Aides in January. Alexis said she wanted to reach out and work with Kelly. Pete, I could channel him. I could hear him saying that he wanted to work with Roger, so he's going to do that. Obviously, Jeremy, anything you'd like to add or adjust and things like that in your section or anywhere, of course. But in particular, if there's some things that you'd like to adjustments I can make, please feel free. The idea here is we're not resolving issues, we're teeing them up. These are the areas we want to focus on. This is kind of how we want to approach it. The policy is a little bit different because they're sort of implementation things. This is where we'd actually maybe be a goal of putting some things in. We can work with Fcdot some things, maybe some things if there's some regional wide or things like that. We might need the Board of Supervisors to do something. It might be possible, I don't have it here. We might want to have something eventually goes into a legislative package, something we found that requires a change in law. We might want to recommend to the board they consider adding it to the county legislative package. Won't happen until next year, but it'll give time to put that together. So that was the idea. We can certainly talk. You and I can talk anytime. That's okay. After the meeting if you'd like, or if you've got any questions, I certainly will hold up for a minute if you'd like to ask some questions right now.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, with that, we are basically just about right here at 8:30, 8:29. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. This is an item that Commissioner Glenn wanted to bring to our attention. There are, I know the county will be involved in some way. I'll admit that talking to Well, we know there's issues related to how we work with school board and stuff like that. But we want to, and this is what I told Fcdot, just respectfully, if commissioners want to bring something up, we'd like them to be able to do so. And so Commissioner Glenn asked to bring this up. And so that's why we're bringing it up, and we'll talk about it. And see what we think and see what we might want to do next. And so with that, Alexis, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. And the floor is yours to talk about the issue here.
All right, great. I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see it? Can you all see my screen?
Yep,
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for letting me bring this to your attention. So Safe Routes to School. Before I jump into the presentation that I put together, I wanted to give just a little bit of background. The presentation will provide background on what the program has done, what it's accomplished, and what it could do in the future if it's funded in the future. I wanted to preface the presentation with the fact that I've had some conversations with Board of Supervisors offices and some of our colleagues on the Trails, Sidewalk, and Bikeways Committee and on FAB have also spoken to their supervisors' offices and school board members. And the unfortunate thing is that many of these folks on the school board and in our on the BOS do not know about this program, don't realize what it's done, don't realize that it's about to run out of funding. So I do think it's important that we raise this this important issue to them so that they can be informed about the opportunity to fund it next year. So with that, a little bit of background on what Safe Routes to School has done. So first of all, it's funded by a federal grant. It has been funded by a federal grant that was awarded to VDOT, and VDOT has been distributing it to schools in Virginia since 2007. In Fairfax County, they've been receiving funds since 2013 when the program allowed for local coordinators to have their salary funded as part of that grant money. So we've had the program in the county for about the last 8 years, 7-8 years, with a part-time coordinator working throughout all of Fairfax County schools with the PE teachers and other staff at the schools. As far as how much money was actually involved with Fairfax County specifically, they received $95,000 in grants each year. Beginning in fiscal year 2018, the VDOT required an 80-20 split at that point. That is, Fairfax County schools had to chip in approximately $19,000 a year to supplement that grant. So Fairfax County itself has been paying this $19,000 for the last 3 years and then getting the rest of their funding through the grant program that is ending this fiscal year. So at the end of the school year, the grant's over and the program will end if it's not funded by other means.
When would it end? Is it June of this year, October this year? Or
yeah, so the end of the fiscal year, which, and I'm not sure actually if the county goes by, I won't say fiscal year, it's the end of the school year. The funds run out.
June of
so June
2022.
of this year. Yep, June or
They have money
July.
through June of 22, and
Yep.
then that's it. Okay, thank you,
That's
sir.
right. Yep. What's been the goal of Safe Routes to School at a high level? To increase the number of students who take part in safe walking and biking activities at school and outside of school. And why would we need it? Why should we have this program in Fairfax County schools? First and foremost, to help students get physically active. There's a huge amount of studies that show, of course, that when students who walk or bike to school tend to have more energy, tend to have are better prepared to learn and to be engaged in school activities. It of course would reduce car congestion at and near schools, and we know that that's just an ongoing huge problem at Kiss and Rides. Every time school starts and school ends is just kind of a scramble, and it creates a lot of dangerous situations. At best, stressful, not fun situations to be in, and at worst, dangerous with aggravated driving behaviors. And then my next bullet, poor air quality. The more cars we have around schools, the more pollution we have around schools, and that of course impacts students and staff who are spending all of their time there.
Alexis, this is Linda. I want to interrupt you really quickly. I live about 2 blocks away from Union Mill Elementary School, and maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, a child was actually hit by another car getting out of their car in the morning going to school by a parent who was trying to avoid the like kiss and ride lot because it's just such a disastrous situation around the elementary school. So, you know, the terrible driving around, luckily the child was okay, but reducing car congestion around the kiss and ride lot, around the schools is just so important to the safety of our kids.
I 100% agree. And I think modeling, having parents model that good behavior, whether it's safe driving or walking or biking with their kids to school, I think, has just so many benefits down the road. Anecdotally, I'll tell you, I rode my bike to my local school a couple weeks ago. I was dropping off, our neighborhood had done a fundraiser thing where we had gotten some pantry supplies for teachers. And I was on a sidewalk riding my bike, and a parent came down the wrong way, down a one-way street, and made a right turn. And I was in the crosswalk coming off the sidewalk, and he wasn't looking the right way because he was going the wrong way. It almost hit me. And I saw him, we were both going to the same school. I got to the school and he got there right behind me. And I was just like, man, you were driving the wrong way. And he's like, have a nice day. And that was it. It's just, there's a lot of issues with this culture of, driving everywhere, and especially driving our kids to school. So I think anything we can do to mitigate those outcomes, we should be striving towards. Of course, the last thing this program will do for kids is that, gives them those lifelong life skills of learning how to bike safely, how to walk safely, rules of the road, skills that they can take on through the rest of their life. So what has this program, with, I think the very nominal amount of funding achieved over the last 7-8 years? The graph you're looking at is a statewide walk to school and bike to school events across all of Virginia. I've highlighted the year 2013. That's when the program began allowing these local, these coordinators to be funded by the grants. And you can see when you have an individual in place at these schools focused on promoting this programming and developing the programming, the events just significantly increase over the years, quite rapidly. Across the country, Virginia was second in the country behind California in the number of events and participation in safe routes to school. So it's been really well received and very successful and growing very quickly. Before COVID, there's 386 walk to school events and 304 bike to school events. In Fairfax County specifically, they represent about a third of those events across the whole state, which I thought was remarkable. In 2019, the 106 walk to school days and events and 93 bike to school events. So people are interested, they want to participate. Before we had to deal with the pandemic, the program was doing really well and really gaining some steam.
So Alexis, when the schools do, and again, I'm just coming from the perspective of the mom of a third grader and a preschooler, we have the bike, walk or bike to school days every year. Is that something that is organized through
Safe Route to School?
Safe Route to School?
It is, it's my understanding it is, yes.
Okay, because those are really great events.
Yeah, people seem to really like them. What's great about it is you get a kind of a critical mass of people out on those events, and it makes it feel safer when you're out there biking with a group or walking with a group. You get, in some cases, you'll even get the local police might shut down a lane of traffic to help facilitate the event, to get people out. It really kind of wakes people up to, what's possible in their own neighborhoods of, can I get to school without having to drive or take the bus? Some other accomplishments that Fairfax County Schools have achieved with this program, that 29 different schools now have their own fleets of bikes housed at their schools that they can use for PE. They've been using for clubs, after school clubs, and they have 2 fleets of traveling bikes that go around to the other schools that don't have their own, so that they can those schools can participate in programs as well. In the 2018-19 school year, 12,689 students at 38 different schools took bike safety lessons, and 12% of those, which is around 1,500 students, were new to riding in just that one year. So 1,500 kids who may have not otherwise had the opportunity to learn to ride had that chance at school. They also do events throughout the year, like bike swaps, bike rodeos, of course, the walk bike to school days that we just talked about. And a recent survey of 21 schools found that if they had a Safe Routes to School program at their school, they saw a decrease in car ridership of 6% with an almost exact corresponding increase in biking and walking. So the program is working in that respect. It's making folks aware of how to walk and bike safely, and then they're actually doing it in their day-to-day.
What is a bike swap?
So like for families that their kids may have outgrown a bike, they can bring like a smaller bike and then swap it for a bigger bike, and vice versa.
Okay. I'll also mention, were you aware that with possible bus driver shortages, that was contributing to more parents driving their kids to school?
I haven't looked at that data specifically. A lot of these accomplishments and data are pre-COVID numbers. I would say anecdotally that I think having programs like this would contribute to the resiliency of being able to get kids to school in different ways. When we're facing a gas shortage or a bus driver shortage or whatever, world event is happening, if we can make it easy and safe for kids to walk and bike to school, that's just one less thing that parents have to worry about on top of all the other things that they're trying to juggle.
I would agree. If I could get one more loaded question to Linda, what grade would you feel comfortable saying goodbye to your son or daughter at the door, letting them walk to school?
Well, that's a very interesting question. My older son is in 3rd grade right now, and I wouldn't feel he could get himself to school, but I can't guarantee that he would pay attention to the cars. And unfortunately, there are a lot of cars, as we were just discussing, that come through. My preschooler, honestly, I could trust him. He's a little force. But it is, I know in my neighborhood especially, the car traffic is so bad on the streets near the school that kids don't, play out in the front yard, for instance, as much as they used to. There are a ton of cars doing drop off, even just from other places in the neighborhood. And so I would hope that a program like this would be helpful and would make people more comfortable with their kids biking to school on a street with traffic faster than it should be.
Yeah, I have a point about that I'll get to in a minute. As far as the future of Safe Routes to School programming. I just wanted to highlight some of the other really great accomplishments. This is a traffic garden at Holland Meadows Elementary School in Mount Vernon District. This was the first traffic garden installed in Fairfax County in 2019. This is the traditional blacktop basketball court area at the school. It was being resurfaced, and the Safe Routes to School coordinator worked with various different departments to to get these designs put in so that they could do bike safety and pedestrian safety classes and clubs out on their playground. The county's second traffic garden was just finished this year. This is in Mason District. Again, on the same kind of model they're starting to use, that when the blacktops come up over their normal course of rehab and maintenance, when they're resurfaced, they're looking to see if they can install these traffic gardens with just, it's very cheap and easy to install now that they have the plans in place with the paint and the designs. So some plans and there's plans upcoming for some newly renovated blacktops for Rocky Run Middle School in Springfield District as well. That's the next one on deck. I did want to play a 2-minute video. I hope I can play or share audio in this. Let me give it a shot here and see. And hopefully, oh my goodness, I hate YouTube ads. Could you guys hear that audio?
No.
Okay. All right. I just think that showing it is a lot better than talking about it. So I hope that gave you a good idea of how well that traffic garden is working at Holland Meadows.
They don't give up their,
traffic garden cost?
Go ahead, please. Linda, Kevin?
go ahead, Linda.
I was going to ask how much a traffic garden costs.
Well, since with that model that Sally Smallwood outlined, she mentioned that Vdot mini grant. That's a supplemental grant on top of the regular grant funds that schools can apply for every year, and they're typically the grants are typically $1,000 to $2,000. They're not a lot. The model she was referencing is that what I mentioned earlier is that when these playgrounds or renovations or maintenance come up for these blacktops where they're going to be resurfaced anyway. The idea is to take that opportunity. They've got the designs already. It's really just a matter of paint and labor that, again, it was going to be used anyway to implement the traffic garden designs onto the blacktop. So it's a very cost-effective, I think, way to get these gardens installed.
They don't lose their basketball markings. Is there any other competing group that, would say, no, I'd rather have something else besides these markings?
I mean, I think that's probably going to vary school to school. You can see at Poe Middle School here, you still have your basketball markings at their hoops, and then the traffic garden markings off to a different side of the blacktop.
Yeah, no, they didn't have to give up the basketball. I wondered if anybody else said, well, no, the traffic garden's nice, but I'd rather have, I don't know, shuffleboard or something instead of this. Just wondered if you were hearing any of that.
I'm not hearing, I haven't heard that, but I think that these coordinators who are embedded in the school and really know the conditions on the ground and the wants and needs of the parents and students and staff, I think are probably the best people to make those determinations.
Now, just an observation, it looks like it's something that if we started 30 years ago, we might have better drivers today. Because at least they know they have to yield to pedestrians and the bicycles. So it's a good start. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Actually, that was the question that Kevin asked was my question, just, competing activities at the school there. So just wondered. Okay. Here we are.
Yes, so the future. So like I said before, the federal grants run out at the end of the school year. As of now, the county schools have not earmarked funding for the coordinator position for next year. This screenshot down here is from the Fcdot Safe Routes for All draft recommendations. They do recommend that a locally funded Safe Routes to School program should be a part of this plan. Unfortunately, they've assigned a medium implementation timeframe to it. As we heard in prior presentations from Fcdot, there's not a specific year date on those timeframes, those short, medium, long, but I think it's safe to assume that medium term means it's not going to happen in the next year or two. So we don't have funding essentially at this time coming up, and the program will end.
Well, I think another problem there is that you're asking the county that they go from a 20% split to 100%, right? So that
the idea, would be that they would have to invest more money, of course, than they're investing now. The flip side of that is that it's a fairly, I think, a low barrier of entry to get, in my view, the program's been operating, if the total grant funds that they were receiving each year was only $100,000. And when you look at some of the other programs that they, that they fund year to year, that's just an extremely nominal amount when you look at their whole budget.
And any feedback why the feds dropped the program?
I don't know. No. I don't know if it had to do with, these grants tend to have, 5 to 10 year life cycles. Haven't done the research into why. So the future, if we can get this program funded in the county, the current coordinator, Sally Smallwood, who has just done a tremendous amount of work and advocacy for this program over the last few years. She's retiring this year, and she has kind of a work plan or an outline of where she thinks this program and the coordinator position should go. There is a recommendation to integrate the coordinator position more with to bring in someone who has perhaps some of this GIS or transportation planning into the programming. And this is what I was referencing when Linda was mentioning, the safety conditions around the school and the hazards getting to school. With someone with that kind of transportation planning expertise, they could not only help with implementing program at school, but when they hear from students or parents about issues getting to school, they can have that expertise to know, how and where to look at fixes to help make it safe for folks to start and to continue getting to school safely. Another goal for the future is to eliminate what's called hazard busing. This is something I recently learned about, that there are, I think at almost every school, kids who live very close enough to walk or bike, within a mile or so, but because of a busy street or a lack of sidewalks or a lack of crosswalks or whatever the reason, they are busing kids who are very, very close to school because it's not safe to walk or bike. And that's, of course, comes at a pretty high cost in, as we're seeing with the driver shortages and with gas prices going up, that, becomes a huge expense that every school has to take on. Another goal for the future would be to create an after-school bike shop where kids could learn how to repair bikes for use in their PE classes. They'd like to get increased, more permanent sets of bikes at schools, so they don't have to have those traveling fleets traveling as much. And then, of course, to continue installing more traffic gardens where they can. Some other future some plans, if we get funding, we want to pilot a pre-K bike and pedestrian program with balance bikes. So for those little kids who aren't quite ready to pedal yet, get them started on balance bikes and lessons so that they can graduate up to a fully fledged bike. Create more campaigns so that they can do multiple bike and walk to school days throughout the year instead of just the 1 or 2 that they're currently doing now. And also to create this curriculum, this project-based learning lessons around ped and bike safety that would actually feed back into Virginia's state education office for distribution across the state. So to create these curriculums that aren't just used here, but then can be leveraged across the state. So how can the TAC help? Well, school budget discussions are happening right now. The fiscal forecast, which doesn't talk about what's going to be funded, it's just kind of a state of money in relation to the county and the schools. That was released in November, and for better or for worse, the housing market, here in Fairfax has helped keep the county solvent and the school solvent, and the fiscal forecast is looking decent. Budget decisions are coming up in a month from now. The school budgets, the proposed school budget's going to come out on January 13th. There'll be public hearings where folks can come and make their case for what they think should or shouldn't be funded. And then shortly after that, in February, the county executive will present the budget and the school board will adopt it. So I wanted to get this in front of you all at this meeting because this is kind of the last chance that we'd have an opportunity to have our input on this if we think that the Board of Supervisors and Fcdot and FCPS should look at funding to continue this program. So what I'd like to ask the TAC is if they would be willing to support a resolution to ask our Board of Supervisors to prioritize funding safe routes to school in the upcoming FCPS budget and to direct Fcdot to begin coordinating and programming efforts for safe routes to school in the short term. They've already identified it for something they want to do anyway. Would just be asking them, instead of waiting a year or 2 or 3 to get started on it, just to fund it now and keep the momentum that we had prior to COVID going with improving bike and walking safety in schools and getting these these critical educational skills to kids. So I've even did a little draft here of hopefully won't give you too much heartburn potential resolution to start us off. So that is all I've got.
Just to refresh my memory, with the Board of Supervisors is allowed to to ask for priorities? I know, because it's my understanding, here's your money, you get to do with it what you want.
The Board of Supervisors can make recommendations, yes.
Okay.
And they do work
So-
with the school board to, identify those, prioritize, and kind of, I think, negotiate with, which ones move ahead.
Oh,
I think, I'll just finish up here. I think we're maybe all be in agreement that, the traffic queuing, everybody sees it in their neighborhood schools. It's a problem. Two, you'd like to get kids involved in sports. It's a great way for exercise and collegial activity and getting away from the video games, but not everybody's going to do that. So here's another avenue to get them, to get them walking, biking as a physical activity. So I see those as a couple of things in favor of what you're trying to do here.
was that a motion, Kevin?
I'm happy to make the motion.
Then I'll second it.
Do you,
Any
Mr. Chairman?
discussion?
Yes, we just have for discussion on the motion. I'm going to reluctantly oppose this motion, and unfortunately, very urgently. The reason is because of the timing. I recognize that this situation, the budget situation, what's happening here with this one position. What we're doing here is we are telling the Board of Supervisors, for whom we've only communicated a couple times, that they should go to the public schools, for which they communicate periodically, and say that of all the activities they've got going on, they need to prioritize this one. And we're telling the Board of Supervisors they ought to start paying for this program right away. And we'd be doing that without getting input from Fairfax County Department of Transportation. I did talk with Noelle, and they did try and at least have a staff member here this evening. Unfortunately, she had another event this evening. She was not able to participate. But I think it's a very dangerous precedent for us to make these financial recommendations without any input from the Board of Supervisors, without any input from Fcdot, and any previous discussion. I know when we supported Commissioner Sitnik's resolution previously, we did not make any financial recommendations. We asked them to have some considerations there, which we were able to craft. It took us some time to do that. We're able to do that. I'm happy to work on crafting some language here, but I'm very uncomfortable with this language right now, and I think it sets a dangerous and unfortunate precedent for us to act this quickly. The other piece of this is, and I'm mindful of the timing of the program, but to me, this absolutely fits perfectly in with bike and pedestrian safety that we're just about to start this year. And I think that that's a perfect place to make a comprehensive recommendation about how the Safe Routes to Schools program fits into a larger safety program. I think that would be the time to do that. I think it would give the Fcdot time to try and incorporate this in their program. I think it's one thing to encourage Fcdot to look at this. But again, I think it's a very dangerous precedent for us to take information that we just think for the first time this evening and make binding financial recommendations for the TAC. We commit the TAC to doing it. I would urge us not to do this. On procedural matters, the content I understand, and actually I'm very sympathetic. On a procedural basis, I oppose this very strongly, and I hope that we vote against it.
Ironic that you and I would be taking each other's usual positions on this. Let me ask if she, because there's some urgency here because it's no longer funded. If she did a paragraph before stating that the funding is run out, and then two, under the be-all to consider funding versus funding, would that make it any more palatable?
No, and the reason is that what we're doing here is we are making a specific financial recommendation. We and telling the board that they should work with Fairfax County Public Schools. We don't advise the school board, so we're trying to work through the Board of Supervisors to tell the public schools that they should put this in their budget. It's very presumptuous of us to tell the Board of Supervisors what kind of communications. Now, we do advise them. We do advise them. But I think it's very dangerous for us to make that kind of recommendation without knowing what other pieces are going on. And I think we have to set priorities. Our resolution should mean something. And we need to be deliberate about those resolutions that we pass and what we say and what we put in them.
Well, that's why I thought saying considering funding takes a little bit of the edge off of it. But I mean, there's clearly a transportation component in here. Just because it falls under the purview of the school board, doesn't mean that we can't weigh in. And that nobody's stronger than me on not telling the board what to do, because we are only an advisory.
Well, if I may, if we just, maybe one word will help, because I like the way Alexis wrote this, where it comes down, urges, it goes Fcdot to fund, and it could put in the middle between to fund, to consider funding a safe routes to schools.
That was my suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just asking them to consider funding it. We're not telling them to do it. We're just asking them to consider.
I want to reiterate as well that we have Fcdot here, and I've spoken to my supervisor's office and spoken to others who've spoken to their board of supervisors office and to their board members, and all of them have said they were not aware of this program. And the idea is to make them aware that this very successful, very cheap program is ending because people haven't paid attention to it. And here's your opportunity to pay attention to it and consider it. And if you like it, here's the budget, happening next month. If you don't,
you need a whereas before this to say this program is ending.
Well, the whereas would be a bunch of the bullets that you mentioned tonight, Alexis, whereas, what the facts are.
Mhm.
That it's ending, that, it's only $110,000, whatever it is. And you have this program already set up, all this good stuff. But I'm listening to Mike and I understand where he's coming from completely. But at the same time, I wish we had this 30 years ago, because maybe the idiot that cut off me in traffic this afternoon wouldn't have, because he would have realized I had the right of way. So
I'm not withdrawing the motion. I think with the rewording and just, even if it's a paid a minimum, just to whereas this program, the funding has ended.
Yep.
I don't want to get her, if this were to pass tonight over the chairman's objection, how delicious would that be? But I don't want to get her tied down with a lot of whereas. Just at a minimum, though, it'd be a whereas this program is ended. There's no funding, so
Yeah.
resolved.
Yeah, I'd like for us to find a way to go forward. So I'd like to keep my second in here too. So.
I have a suggestion on possibly some language, but let me just kind of give my point of view first. I think we live in neighborhoods that Alexis mentioned, the hazard busing. That's what we face in our neighborhoods. We have folks who live across the street from our elementary school that take the bus because it's dangerous to walk there. Our elementary schools are the center of our communities. When we talk about active transportation, most people we're talking about our elementary schools. That's where people are walking to, that have access to. Not everyone has access to a grocery store or convenience store, but a lot of communities have access to their elementary schools. They're not only places where our kids go, they're places where community groups meet, where sports are played, where both weekend and evening activities happen, that we don't have enough parking spaces to fit all the cars that show up on back to school night. We just got, in our neighborhoods, we got $1 million Safe Routes to School grant this past year. That construction won't start until 2024. We've had another several elementary schools across Fairfax County that have gotten Safe Routes to School grants. The county is putting hundreds, millions of dollars into these programs because they fund part of it. We're spending considerable amounts of money in Fairfax County to improve active transportation. We funded programs across the county, but the one place that we're actually have an opportunity to impact and encourage active transportation is with our elementary schools. So I would support this amendment as drafted, but let me just suggest that perhaps we don't need to suggest that it is a particular position that's funded, but this is an important program that should continue in Fairfax County, whether it's with a single person or it's integrated in another type of program. But I think I would support some kind of language that encourages the county to continue at some type of role.
Alexis, I'm okay with it. How about you?
Suggesting just removing that bit.
Mr. Chairman, this is Noel with FCDOT. Do you mind if I ask a question and or try to clarify something?
Sure, please do.
I've been listening to your discussion, and I think the confusion, well, not confusion is not the right term. I guess the question on our end is the Safe Routes to Schools program itself is not ending. There are various programs funded through that. That's a federal program that is ongoing. As was just mentioned, we continue at FCDOT to apply for infrastructure grants through the program, through Vdot, but we do receive infrastructure programs like the project that was just described, that Mr. Hancock just described. I think what here is talking about, and this is where I don't have the information, and unfortunately, our Safe Routes to Schools person at FCDOT who deals with these infrastructure projects, like the one that Mr. Hancock just mentioned, it sounds like there's a separate program at FCPS, or a separate project or something, an FCPS specific program that maybe that grant has expired. So I do want to differentiate between what FCDOT does with the infrastructure grants versus what FCPS may be doing, which again, I don't have the details for. And unfortunately, our FCDOT person was not able to be here tonight. So that's kind of where my question is for Ms. Glenn, and some clarification here in that the SRTS program itself is not ending. I can't speak for the SPS grant itself, but the program as a whole is continuing, and that's where I think there might be some question. And again, as far as this FCDOT, Safe Routes to Schools programming, without having that background information and without our active transportation team here, they might also be speaking of the infrastructure portion of that on preparing these applications to have these new sidewalk connections, these new, facilities leading to the schools. And I don't know if it's that or what Ms. Glenn is speaking of. So that's where I think there is some overlap yet difference between the two.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. The aspect of the funding and programming that I'm speaking of is the local coordinator salary and the programming that they do with PE teachers, with PTAs at individual schools, not those infrastructure. This is all non-infrastructure funding that I've been discussing. The traffic gardens were used separate, like the mini grant that was mentioned in the video. That's a separate funding stream versus this other grant that funds the people who pull it off, who are in the schools doing the work.
And I believe that all goes through FCPS, and what applications they have submitted or received funding for, I can't speak to because they are their own entity. But I did want to differentiate between what FCDOT might be talking about versus what FCPS may have done, because they could be completely separate things. Unfortunately, without our active transportation team here to answer any questions, I don't have the answer to that.
Thank you,
I,
Noel.
I think that's very interesting, Noel. And so what I see, what we have here now is that Alexis bringing this up under the gun for budget reasons. Now, Noel has brought up that, hey, we may be able to get here from different groups, different agencies that have funding And if we put this resolution forward now without hearing from that, then that would kind of cede maybe to the chairman's point that we haven't done all of our homework here. So it's kind of a problem for you, Alexis, if from the budget point, if the deadline is, this month versus them coming back and say, well, you didn't give everybody a chance to weigh in here.
If I have a question, and first, Alexis, I do want to acknowledge the amount of work you have done. I mean, this is very well researched. There are questions we're raising right now, but this is a great deal of information, a great deal of context. It gives us a very good foundation to have this conversation. And yes, we wouldn't have known about the situation had you not brought it up. The question I particularly want to ask is, it appears that there's sort of a conflation here of FCPS funding and Fcdot funding, picking a bit of, I think, what Noel was saying. I think the funding runs out for FCPS, and that's where the coordinator is. But are we asking really sort of the board to encourage the school board to fund the coordinator and keep it in FCPS? Or are we also trying to encourage Fcdot to do some stuff as well? It seems we're a little...
I think that I feel like those nuances and details of who funds what, where it comes from, are up to board of supervisors, the school board, Fcdot to work out the details. I think my intent with this resolution is that the TAC acknowledges that this program is important, that it's working, and that we think they need to be aware of it and continue funding it.
We don't have a view of the Fcdot, whether they believe it is working. I'm not saying they don't.
I mean, it's not a question of if it's working. It's not going to happen anymore without funding. I think I was looking at our bylaws. Our purpose is on major transportation matters and issues. It's not specific to Fcdot. It's about transportation issues in Fairfax County, and this is a program that supports other types of transportation beyond a car.
Oh, the way it's
Alexis, what happens if this is delayed? If this is topic number 1 at the January meeting?
I don't know our January meeting date, but
18th.
The 18th is after. Let me go back. Where's my timeline? Here we go. Their proposed budget comes out on the 13th. There's about 11 days before they have their official hearing in between. Usually by the time the budget's released, unless a board of supervisor or a school board member wants to make some dramatic move, things don't shift too much.
I just see I just a conundrum for me here, because I think I can't ignore what Noel has raised, and I would hate to see you lose maybe credibility is too strong a word, but lose any credibility that we pass this, or the TAC lose some, if the funding for this concept is there, but it's not through this coordinator. I mean, the concept is important. None of us knew about it. Goes to my earlier point of making sure the work plan doesn't get in the way of allowing commissioners to bring things like this up. So I'd like to see your idea succeed. I don't want to hurt it by passing it too early, if that makes any sense, without, maybe we have to vet it a little more.
What if we did something, Alexis? It seems like one of the big issues you were mentioning was that a lot of the board was not aware of this program and that it's expiring. What if we do pass a resolution making sure that they are aware of its expiration, and we just stop short of mentioning our request for funding and make sure that they're aware of the situation that's coming up? And if we word it that way, it makes it aware that we're interested in the program, and they should be able to figure out what we're asking for without us actually making the ask.
Could you or someone talk about how that wording would actually, how that would look?
Um,
Maybe I still am reluctant to support the resolution for the reasons I stated. At the same time, too, I definitely want to try and consider perhaps language that helps preserve our, I'll use the word credibility. That is a part of essence. My concern is that that without full knowledge, we run a greater risk of doing something we might later regret, or not even regret, that's too strong. Realize we could have been a bit more focused. Recognize also we have a deadline. But rather than say consider funding the safe process programming, say work together to consider continuing the program.
yeah, that's more like using language like that, continuing it, but like making sure that they're aware that the funding is coming to an end, making sure that everyone is aware of the success of it, the increased numbers that have come from the program in the past. Just talk about the success of the program.
And I know we didn't want to get into too many whereases, as Kevin was saying, but one of the whereases could be Fcdot has a program that is emerging. I'm not sure exactly the the status there, but they are aware of it. So this is something, Alexis, you said, the county is considering doing. So that would be a point to make, that it is going on. Trouble is, we don't know exactly what they're doing, and that's what we're missing by not having the Fcdot person here.
Do we have anything in our toolbox other than a resolution where we could send just a message to the board that, be aware this program is ending, and in January, the TAC is going to be inviting people that Noel mentioned to discuss this, see how they're going to pick this up.
I would think we could at least write a letter that gives our concerns, that says this is something that Fcdot appears to be supporting as far as infrastructure and everything else going forward with the safe routes to school. But we are concerned that they're missing out on the coordinator because the funding is stopped there, and would like for them, investigate it and make some wise decisions on what makes this program work the best going forward. I mean, that's mushy language, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it is. Hesitate to do that, but understand where you're coming from and the rationale. Another option, which is not strictly, which would not be for us, is almost by definition, anything the TAC passes will be sort of watered down from what some would like to have. Alexis, I know you like to go further, and I appreciate and respect you, putting something forward that you didn't try and sort of put the TAC on the spot, so to speak. But I think one of the other options here, particularly given the timeline, is for individual TAC members armed now with this information, thanks to Alexis, to go to your Board of Supervisors member and go to your school board member and make them aware of the program. And you can, at that point, speak very strongly and clearly about your view of what the program is. To a degree, I think the program kind of sells itself. It is fairly obvious. My preference, and this is something we are still working through as a TAC, but this is a precedent setting, and there's certainly a chance to talk about it here, is would like the TAC, when it speaks, to be more definitive, to be be as active and forceful as it can as a group. And I think right now, because of the uncertainties, we can't be as forceful as we'd like to be. We can certainly, pass a resolution, hey, bring it to your attention. I'm not sure how I vote with that, and that might be enough. But even despite whatever we do or don't do here, what I would encourage commissioners to do, if you believe strongly about this, and I can see why you would or why you might, to take it to use your own channels with your supervisor and the public schools, bring it to their attention. I can't speak as the TAC, but certainly can say, as a TAC commissioner, we discussed it, I believe, and then say from there. That's another option too.
But we don't have a full house tonight, but I mean, I kind of like the letter idea. If we were in agreement that we could put this on the agenda, if Noel agrees that we could get the parties at January and just an informational letter saying this position is ended. The TAC is going to put on their agenda for the January meeting how this could continue. But we want you to be aware that it is the position is ended. It's terminated.
Well, another option, not a popular one, would be to meet at a work session on the 4th or the 11th. The 11th is still in front of the 13th, although it's only 2 days before. So, practically speaking, if we wanted to do something, because I think it'd be easy. So I don't think we'd be very effective saying, "Hey, we're going to meet about it later." They sound great, but then the decision will be made. So we could have a work meeting on the 4th, and we could also talk about the work plan if we wanted, or keep our original timeline there. We could certainly try and do that if folks want to meet on the 4th. If we want to try and have a more informed resolution, or the 5th or the 6th, depending on when the Fcdot folks can be here. But I'm open to doing that if we want to meet again to talk about it before the 13th.
I guess I understand the hesitancy around a budget resolution. I guess my question is what more would the TAC need to make a decision at another meeting? I mean, we know the program's ending. So it's either they have, do we support these type of programs in Fairfax County or do we not? And so it doesn't matter to me whether it's a dedicated coordinator, whatever you want to name it. I think that the position is that these are important programs in Fairfax County that should continue to be funded. And so my question is who would we need to bring in to have that discussion?
And I think we go back to Noel, Fcdot, which is the danger of a work session not giving her or Fcdot enough time to get the people we need in at the January meeting. Get those people in January and everybody on the TAC agrees this is, an important program, whether it's with or without a coordinator, it needs to continue in some form. And then we can pass a resolution that's been properly, I think, vetted.
Mr. Chairman, this is Noel again. So I can talk with Fcdot staff about attending in January. And then again, the difference here is the FCPS and the Fcdot, the different parts they play. I can't speak to whether or not we'd be able to get FCPS to attend as well about their process and how that application went through. But I'm happy to at least make the call.
Okay.
I would be disappointed if FCPS didn't want to attend because they're critical. And I would be very disappointed in them if they chose not to attend.
And I don't think I can't speak for them. I think that because I think that the application that is ending was an FCPS application, and I think they might have more information on that specific part of it. I just don't want to speak for them. They're a completely different entity.
I agree.
Another advantage to waiting, if we do that, is even if we're not able to get FCPS for whatever reason, and I think we can be flexible on the date. We don't have too much flexibility. The 4th will be the target date because that's at our work session, but we can try and do it the 5th or the 6th, if that is an issue. But I think that what it also does, if we then decide, because we'd be meeting, if we then decide to pass a resolution, we have certainly given FCPS and Fcdot an opportunity to weigh in. And then at that point, if they're not able to, then we can go after having given them the opportunity. Right now, we haven't given the opportunity, and that's really the piece that I'm most concerned about. I've often talked about the priorities of the TAC that we advise the Board of Supervisors, and that's who we answer to. And of course, I still believe that. But also, as I've also said, I know we understand, we want to be respectful of Fcdot. We like to, be a partner with them and see what, see what views they have. Often, I've yet to see an issue they've not been thinking about. We're very much welcome to have your views. And I think we stand a chance of making a more informed resolution, which might not look a lot different than what we could come up with right now. Might be able to be a bit more pointed, but it'll be informed, and we've done our homework. And I think that giving Fcdot notice, doing our homework, those are two things I hope we always do with resolutions. I know there's tight timelines, but the other thing is too that as we get into focus areas here, we will probably unearth other gems of programs or things like that that might be at risk that nobody knew about. But we've gone out and searched and found them, and hopefully then in a situation we've got more time to generate support for an activity that might otherwise have been overlooked. I'd be happy to have another session here on the 4th, try and target on the 4th if commissioners are welcome to do that. But Alexis, I will ask you put the resolution forward. Is that something you can live with, be comfortable with, support? I just ask your views, Commissioner.
I think so. I mean, I feel like there's a majority of folks who've expressed support of this. So whatever form that takes, whether it's a letter or a resolution, I think I respectfully disagree with you, Mike, that I think the TAC is well within its purpose and its space to make these kinds of recommendations. That's why our board of supervisors appointed us. So, I'm willing to work with whatever the board is or whatever the commission is comfortable doing, whether it's a letter, a resolution, or if you all decide you're not comfortable with it, then I'll pursue other means to get the message out.
I would support a brief letter, an FYI to the board saying, we've been informed that this has ended, this program has ended. We think it has value, and we are holding the hearing. I would say preferably on the regular date. I think a work session is much too soon, but I'll leave that to the chair. We're going to have it's going to be on the agenda to see how this program can continue. Just very, very brief informational letter stating that it will be on the agenda. And then hopefully we would be in a position then to vet this topic properly and pass a resolution.
I mean, I think the idea of having the work session was to have it before the budget came out, Kevin. So I think that's the reason why we would be doing it at the work session as opposed to our next meeting.
What if they come back and say we can't get the participants at the work session?
Well, then, I mean, if they say that, then naturally, then I guess we fall to having it at our meeting. But I think that's also why Mike said that we could maybe be flexible about what date the work session is, whether that's the 4th or potentially the 5th or the 6th. But we'll see. I mean, don't make a decision until you have to. So let's see what they come back to us with about the 4th. Forgive me.
Well, but also, if we meet in a work session, or if we delay this now, my thought is that we would meet on the 4th, 5th, or 6th, whatever day is we can get Fcdot, FCPS. If we can't, we meet anyway, and then at that point we act. And again, what we've done then is we've given FCPS and Fcdot a chance to look at the program. Maybe to realize the error of their ways. Maybe they come in and say, oh my gosh, we hadn't realized we are going to put it in our budget because we've asked. I mean, I won't say for sure, but maybe they do. That would be fantastic. If they don't do that, then we can certainly act. But Alexis, I absolutely agree, and I know Jeremy said it too. We absolutely can take this action. What I'm suggesting right now is we should not at this time, for the reasons I've stated. But we absolutely, it is within our prerogatives to pass this resolution tonight if we want. I mean, and quite honestly, if we have commissioners that, despite the discussion here, still want to push forward on the resolution, we can have the vote on the resolution. We do have a motion on the floor right now. And then the referendum would be whether we want to pass a resolution, and then maybe tweak it a little bit more if we want, or come back on the 4th. I would prefer to come back on the 4th because, again, I think that as we come into 2022, as we set our work plan out, as we establish a sustainable relationship with the Board of Supervisors, I really want them to see us doing our homework. And this is an important program, but it's a relatively small one. And I think one of the other questions is what happens without our action tonight? And I think there's a number of good things that can happen as a result, not least of which is, we now know, more of us know what's going on and can eventually take action. But Fcdot now knows that the TAC is interested in this. FCPS will soon know as well too, which they didn't before. And we can give them opportunity to, as I say, I'm joking, but I'll say it, to sort of do the right thing. If they do, then merely asking the question got us what we needed. If it doesn't, then we can take action. So it'd be my preference, yes, to meet on the 4th, to have a work session, or the 5th or the 6th. And then at that point, for us to decide what to do, whether we pass the same resolution, something different, hopefully after having talked to Fcdot and FCPS. I'm optimistic and confident that they would be willing and able to come.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brett Riddle. May I interject real quick?
Yes, sure.
Ms. Glenn, thank you very much for the presentation. That was really fascinating. I used to be on the funding side of the coordination and funding team, and I was the one that put together the Safe Routes to School grant applications. And so I'm pretty familiar, although I was working with our active transportation folks to put those together. But the question I have for you is, when you say the program is ending, it sounds like you're talking about just maybe Sally Smallwood's position, or that coordinator position program is ending.
The non-infrastructure funding, yeah.
The non-infrastructure funding.
Yeah, so programming in the coordinator position.
Okay, so but that's within the FCPS budget.
Yes.
Okay. All right, because I want to be able to, when we talk with Lauren Delmar and Active Transportation, I want to be able to relate to her exactly what your concern is and what the position is, or what the funding is that you're concerned about. Because on our side, on the infrastructure funding, that program's still very much alive. So it's a little, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around what exactly is going away. So.
Right. Well, the infrastructure part is really important, of course. And what Sally does is just coordination across the whole county with all the schools, with all the programs, with all the training, with all the opportunities for students and parents to participate in, whether it's an after-school program, whether it's a bike to walk school day, other events that go on, and then of course the education portion of it.
Yeah, and those are great, by the way. I really appreciate the presentation. I was totally unaware of a lot of the stuff that you showed, so that was great. Okay, I appreciate your feedback. So we'll regroup with it internally.
And I think then, Alexis, if I understand from the presentation, Sally is retiring at the end of the school year, perhaps? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
So at this point, there's no funding to replace her, and they haven't identified a person probably to replace her because there's no funding yet, probably.
Yeah, there's no job opening for a person to fill.
Okay. One of the things that we can do, and I think this will be, and I'm not speaking specifically here because we still have a decision on the table, but I think in general, one of the things that the TAC can do is we can remind people about things. I think one of the things that, for instance, with Relay, they would like to, and there is value in continuing the demonstration in a different way. They'll come back and talk to us about that. And so those are things we can take to the Board of Supervisors and say, we think, you need to consider doing, X or Y, whatever we say. I think that the TAC will not forget about this program. Alexis won't, and I don't think we will. We recognize the program here. So, we might have a situation where there's no FCPS coordinator over the summer, perhaps. Well, there's not so many kids in school in the summer. Perhaps by the fall. I recognize the budget situation, but you can move things around. Actually, one of the advantages to a small amount of money is it might be something to do with, with the reprogramming. So I think that, we can keep on this program. I know this won't be the last time we talk about it. whether we come back on the 4th or the 5th, but also I know it'll be part of the conversation we have about, trails and sidewalks, the safety component of that program. Alexis, my jaw would hit the floor if when that comes back, this is not in there. I know you'll include it. So we will keep an eye on this. I think the question we're talking about now is just, what step is next? What I would ask before we move forward procedurally is, given the suggestion of having another work session on the 4th, if there's sufficient either support for or willingness to do that, Alexis should be willing to withdraw the resolution. If not, we can proceed to vote on the resolution. But I'd ask if that would be an acceptable course of action for folks here.
Well, procedurally, I think don't I have to withdraw the resolution? I made it.
I thought Alexis made it, but if you did, then yes, you would have to. I'm sorry, I lost track of who made it.
Yeah, and at this point, I would withdraw it because of what Noel brought to light, and hope that we would pass a short letter or agree to a short letter. As far as the 4th, I mean, that to me, that's the other danger of we don't have a full house here tonight. What if you only get a few commissioners on the 4th? And then you're passing a resolution on the 4th with maybe not.
Actually, I have a suggestion about that. A letter is, we can do a letter. But a letter, sort of by definition, is not something that's passed by the TAC. I would be respectful of the position of many TAC members. I can understand the reluctance in just having to write the letter, although I hope that sufficient trust that I'm not going to tank or torpedo something. But where I'm going with this is that if we do not have a quorum on the 4th or the 5th, we take whatever resolution we would have passed, like to have passed, and we turn that into a letter. And I'd be happy to sign that.
Would you be against us agreeing that you draft with Alexis a letter, just a brief informational letter after tonight saying we've been made aware that this program is ending. We're going to be either meeting on the work session or the next regular scheduled session to discuss it further.
I would rather not. The reason is because even with the letter, I'd like to be definitive. If we have something to report, if we have something to inform, if we know we're meeting, then I could say that. But if we're able to meet before the 11th, then that meeting will carry the water.
What's the
Okay,
difference between a letter and a resolution?
Well, a letter is written by the chairman. We can have a letter theoretically drafted and say, okay, we're going to vote on the letter, and Mike, you put your signature on it. But that to me is like a resolution. A letter is something that we wouldn't all see, and I'm not sure what that gets us. Although I guess I don't know, picking up Kevin, we've been made aware of of what's going on. I tell you, if we agree here to meet on the 4th, we can send a letter. But then the question is who we send it to, because if we do meet on the 4th, let's say, then we pass the resolution. Because I think if we meet on the 4th, we will attempt to pass something. That's the point of getting together. And so at that point, whatever we pass, that gets transmitted. We have official processes for that. Other than that, we're just sort of like raising a little flag saying, hey, this is coming. And there can be some value there. I think it's a modest value, but I think that's all we can really say is that we've been way aware of the program, concerned that it's not been given appropriate attention. We're going to meet again on the 4th to look at it. If we aren't willing to meet before the 13th, then we might as well not meet. Then it means we're not serious about taking action. And I don't think a letter like that is of much help.
It just maybe one more time, but Jeremy, specifically to me, the letter is a piece of information for the board. The resolution would be asking them to do something. So a letter now to me is fine. With a meeting, I just don't think you can commit to the 4th. we can all vote on it tonight, meeting on the 4th, but if either FCDOT comes back and says, you know, we can't, these people are not ready to meet on the 4th, then we meet on the regular date. And just because the budget's been announced, I don't think precludes them from, if we did pass a resolution on the 18th of taking action and the board saying to the school board, you know, we want this program to continue. Something.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is that the direction of if we do a resolution, that it's not going to be specific to the budget and funding, but that we're supporting a program, in which case is it really, do we need to meet on the 4th to be able to do that? If that's the direction that it's going, I think while I would be ready to vote tonight, I do understand the importance of building consensus on this and having stakeholders brief us on it. And so if that's the direction that it was going, it seems like a regular meeting, we could get there rather than rushing to just do a letter that's going to say that we support a program.
Well, I think you've got a valid point. I might come around to that. If you're saying we pass a resolution tonight, not asking for specific funding but that we are concerned about what this program does, and that we're going to have a hearing. It's going to be on the agenda. If that's what you're saying, I would support that resolution as well.
We wouldn't have to announce we're having a hearing. We could just say we're concerned. Yes, Kevin.
Let me find out tomorrow about, I'll send an email tomorrow and see if we can get our staff of active transportation be available on the 4th. And also, if I have a contact person for the school, I will try to see if he or she will be available for our meeting. And that way, we know for sure that you know, we have a chance to review the resolution or the letters. And also,
I appreciate that, but I think we don't know for sure now, even though we think it's likely. We don't know for sure that Fcdot and FCPS can come see us on the 4th, 5th, or the 6th. Likely, given the conversation tonight, I think very likely. We don't know for sure. So we have to make our decisions tonight on what we're going to do while we're here. You know, what we're going to do. You know, I think right now, if we pass a resolution tonight, it's really just sort of raising the awareness of the program. We're concerned about it. We've expressed some interest. I don't think we need to commit ourselves to doing something. We will meet about it, but I don't think we need to tell them that. We just want to bring it to their attention. Or we have a work session where we do get the briefing, and then we can have a more focused resolution after having Fcdot and FCPS you know, involved in the conversation. I think it gives us an opportunity to be more pointed in our resolution, should we choose to. But if we really want to raise it to their attention this evening, we could do that and then not have the meeting on the 4th. And then, yes, maybe the 18th, or maybe later in the year as part of you know, the active Fairfax safety issues. Maybe that's where that conversation takes place. I think it will then. That might be the next time we come back to it. If we pass a resolution tonight, just saying we wanted to make you aware of it. And already we're talking about not urgent funding. We're just talking about consider and making them aware. So we could do that if we feel we need to, if we want to.
And,
What do you think
can
of
I
that
add something
resolution?
that
Go ahead.
in the past we have sent letters to the board supervisor, and I've seen that other committee like the Trail and Sidewalk Committee, they send letters to the board all the time. They don't. I think that's their way of communication with the board. I haven't seen them send a resolution, so that might be something that we can consider.
Sending a letter, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, they send a letters, you know, stating their decision on whatever project they support.
Mhm.
But I have not seen them send a resolution. I might be wrong, but that's something that we can consider instead of a resolution. A letter would be sufficient.
Well, if the goal is for now to bring this, the demise of the program to their attention, it's not the demise of the program, and that's part of the issue here. Although maybe we can get some information from Fcdot and FCPS, that it's not the demise of the program because the infrastructure is going to continue. It's the coordinator position. So, you know, here's where we sort of get into a little gray area. We can continue doing research. Alexis, I know you want to be involved in conversations, hearing what's happening. I do, of course, too. We're putting a letter together. Well, gosh, that's what we would do on the 4th as a group. You know, is have that information presented to us. But another option here is to say I'd like to have the chairman put a letter together that, you know, brings to the board's attention the fact the program, part of the program is at risk, and we're not sure exactly. That's what we need to sort of resolve. And to please be aware as this comes into the budget process, and you know, consider communicating that to coordinating with FCPS. You know,
Calvin,
but what we left with though.
If we used our lifelines with Tom, can we? Is it possible to text him tonight? Very short.
I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think I would support a letter sooner that Mike, that raises this question, that this has been raised to our attention, that this funding is being removed. We think that these types of programs are important as a component of active transportation in the county, and that the TAC will be, you know, holding a commission meeting to better understand these issues in the way that Fairfax can support active transportation, something like that. And then we have at a normal meeting. I would, as much as I would like to have a resolution, I think the goal of raising the attention to the Board of Supervisors would be my priority. And then to have in our January regular meeting to be able to come back with a stronger resolution that's supported by the full commission.
Okay.
Well, I would like to withdraw my motion and support what Jeremy just stated.
Thank you. My second is now behind Jeremy's. Let's follow that. Because it's important to get the board aware that there's a problem, what the problem is, and we'll do some more work. And if a resolution is needed, we'll drop a resolution on top of it.
Okay. We'll see. I mean, January 18th is only a few days after the budget is finalized. That might be, you know, things are locked down behind a big steel door. Got it. But you know, it is not too late. And we have brought it with this course of action. We have brought it to their attention. You know, what I also can consider is, and let me suggest a way ahead. Alexis, Jeremy, since commissioners can work in groups of two, if you'd be willing to work together and consult with others, but I'm thinking Alexis and Jeremy to start to sort of work with Calvin and the Fcdot, FCPS people, and find out a bit more about what's going on, and put together sort of the facts a little bit, put the first draft of the letter together. You know, I'm going to maybe walk it back a little bit, so please take that into account. But I think that the goal here that we're talking about of bringing it to the board's attention, making sure they're aware, and yes, we can talk about the fact that now that we're aware of it, we know this is an important program. We are going to look at it. We don't have time. We wanted to bring it to your attention now, you know, to give you as much time as we have to let you know of this issue, so you can start working it. If during your research, Alexis, Jeremy, you start thinking that, hey, things are a little worse than we thought, maybe we do need a special session, we can come back to that. I can call one and we'll see how many votes we get. I'd rather not do that. You know, I think that option is fine if we really need to. Because Alexis, while I've been reluctant to support the resolution for the reasons I've stated, I very much am fully supportive of trying to have the TAC act in a timely fashion. And I know that the budget deadline is there, and so I hope you see that I am trying to, you know, take the best action we can within the time we've got. So with that, I'd be happy to work on a letter there. Would Alexis, Jeremy, would you feel comfortable putting that first draft together with maybe, so the whereas is sort of things, maybe not in the form of whereas, just a little bit of background, bring it to their attention, and we can work that. And then what I would propose to do then is have Calvin send it out to the tech, like we've been talking about with the work plan, for folks to have a look at it, quick turnaround, and then have to sort of allow for the fact that I'm not going to be able to get it exact, but at least get it close. Does that seem like a reasonable course of action to the commissioners?
I'd be happy even to just, I vote of confidence that whatever Jeremy and Alexis come up with, you could sign without, delaying it further with the TAC. But either way, I'm good with that plan.
Pete?
Yeah, I'm happy to help. I would just defer this to Alexis since this is her
Yep.
effort.
Yep.
Okay. Whatever you want to divide up the work, 50-50, 100-0. It's between the two of you. And I think, Alexis, we'll talk about it as we go forward there. I know the intent, know the urgency, know the passion, know the views of the TAC. This is something we care about, and we can that will be transmitted in the letter there. And so my plan is to send it up to TAC members so folks can have a look at it. But when we do, you won't have much time to look at it. If for some reason we're just running out of time, I got to catch a plane or get on a train or something like that, I'm going away for over the holidays, then I may dispense with that step. But we should be able to get that out here by the end of the week, certainly no later than the beginning of next week. I think the goal will be to try and get it out by the end of this week.
Okay, is the motion withdrawn, Roger? Are we good? Did we do the housekeeping there?
Yes, we did.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Alexis, thank you for raising this. It's an important issue, and also it's important for us to work on some of our procedures. I think one of the lessons for the commissioners in the future is, again, we know there sometimes deadlines come up, but let's try and in the future as we go forward, try and give ourselves a bit more lead time so we can get the Fcdot folks in. And we did try. They just were not available tonight. Okay. With that, we move on to the Transportation Achievement Award. And let me just jump sort of to one part of this issue right here. I do not believe we're going to need a closed session. Two reasons. One is the committee themselves made a unanimous recommendation. The recommendation has been is prepared for us here, and I'll turn it over to the chair of the committee in just a moment. The other is that the extent to which we might want to discuss, to a degree, the various proposals, nomination packages. There's nobody else on here but us commissioners, and by the time it gets written up and all that, the decision will be made and it will already be announced. So with that, I think we can dispense with the special session. I'm sorry, the closed session, and go straight to consideration of the committee recommendation. So Kevin, will you bring the recommendation up, or is that Roger? Or?
I think it's Rogers.
Okay.
That's right. There we go, Roger.
After several emails today that went through Calvin, we had a unanimous decision in favor of the Scott's Run project. I think we had some really good projects this year. And having been on this body for a number of years, I think there are years that any one of these could have won. But this one was really good, and it was a unanimous decision on the part of the advisory panel. And so we would respectfully submit the Scott's Run project for the TAC Achievement Award this year. And since my other two co-members are present, they can add their own comments if they wish.
I just wanted to engage Commissioner Sitnick. One, commend him for the two nominations that he submitted. A little bit of a stacked deck, Pete, because the other had a senior member of Fcdot, it was really well presented, and it wasn't. I Googled the map, and then on the without the I don't know what the term. When you go in at first, you get the you don't get the picture, you don't get the physical picture. I saw all the squiggly lines on the Scott Runs Trail. And I said, why can't they draw a straight line? And then when you go in and see the Earth view or whatever they call it, then you read the proposal more. They talk about the switchback. So there was a degree of difficulty. But I thought what is it? The Gateway Project, not the
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, was that was the ultimate end of that they went from a grade separated to an at grade solution there? Was that their ultimate goal?
That was part of the goal. It was for more than 20 years, VDOT wanted to do another mixing bowl sort of thing.
Okay.
And that would have destroyed, I think it was 25 acres. It would have altered the concrete. So that was a big deal. But the biggest change that they would have done there was apply urban street design, which is more the complete street that we're talking about nowadays. It's 30 years off, but they paved the way for that, and that's the main thing they did there. It took Fcdot about 10 years to accomplish that. So.
Well, it was well presented, and it was a close call for me. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and thank you again for submitting those 2 nominations.
Thank you. They would love to know that you supported it. So thank you, Kevin.
It was for me too. I could have gone either way.
Well, I heard part of the story was that they didn't write enough, and I must admit that
I would say that the problem with the winning one was that they wrote too much.
Well, I asked these guys to keep it short.
Thank you.
So I might have submarined them without trying to.
No, I don't think you did. I think one of the things that, despite the completeness of the Scott Run presentation, was it was too long. The thing that probably limited it for me was federal funding.
Yeah.
I don't like federal funding, I'm sorry. And I like these projects that are more indigenous. So those are the 2 things that had merit for me, but I couldn't ignore the completeness of the Scott Run presentation and its real benefit for transportation. And that was, flip the coin in it.
I respect your decision. I'm just happy that you looked at the 2 that I threw in there. So thank you very much.
Well, you can throw them in again next year.
They might come back.
Nothing wrong with brevity either.
There you
Oh,
go.
please. In fact, I was almost ready to affix something and say, if it's longer than 2 pages, I will quit reading at the end of the 2nd page. So, but anyhow, I'm happy with the choices.
Maybe we can specify that next year, who's ever on the committee, that it has to be within no more than 2 pages.
But I'm really glad that we had some vigorous competitions here. There are some years that we've been out beating the bushes for somebody to take this, and this year we had some really good projects to consider. And so I'm happy with the choice. I'm happy with the outcome. And so anyhow, that's our recommendation.
Okay. Appreciate that very much.
Does Linda have anything to add? It's the 3rd member.
No, I think you've covered everything. We had some great nominations this year. It was really interesting to read the submissions, and again, I appreciate Commissioner Sitnick. Thank you so much for your nominations.
Thank you. It was fun.
Well, maybe we've gotten to the point with this now where we actually are going to have some competition for these awards. which I think is beneficial because it will make the award more valuable.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. I'm trying to think, one of the things I noticed as I looked at the packages there, and I think lessons learned for the future is we need a title of what to call it. And that's certainly something I know that Commissioner Sidnick had in his proposals. But also sort of a short description of the project. I mean, what was the Scotts Run project? What was the thing they did?
Kevin, you probably read it even more thoroughly than I did.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
What was the Scotts Run project? What were they doing?
Connecting out in McLean, I think, that from Chain Bridge Road to
McGarry and yeah.
123.
Yeah, from 123 to another road. I can't think of the name. But it also is access to, I believe, a metro station there.
That's right. It would.
Okay.
That was a real strength, that it was a way of bringing traffic to a metro stop that was not motorized.
And there was an engineering challenge in getting it done because of the to make it ADA accessible. That's why you have all the switchbacks on it.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that, but you're right about that. It was in there. I mean, those are the things that were impressive.
Appreciate that. And in a moment here, we'll entertain a motion to approve the committee's recommendation. Privilege motion, which Roger, you can offer as the chair there. But one thing I'd like to ask is and I guess we can do it later, but just while I'm thinking about it, having just given out belatedly the 2020 TAC award, I'm mindful of what's helpful to have as we're making the presentation in front of the Board of Supervisors. A title would be good, but also a short description of what the project was doing, because we'll want to describe that. And we didn't ask it of the nominations. I think that is something we want to do in the future. But please, if the committee, Roger, Kevin, Linda could put together 2 sentences or so, 3 sentences on what this is and come up with a good name. That's how we're going to announce it. That's how we'll describe it as we go forward. And I'm confident we won't have to wait till December of 2022 to hand out the 2021 TAC award. We'll probably try and do that in the spring.
But I would put it back to Todd Minix, who submitted it that would be the quickest way to get it done. So either Roger reaching out to Todd or Calvin or you. I think that's easily done. When do they get informed that they won?
I guess we could let them know anytime after the TAC votes on it. If the commission votes to accept our recommendation.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, then does the chairman would notify them, and then maybe we could follow up immediately after they've been notified to say, hey, we need a better description here when we run you
A brief description.
A brief description when Jeff presents you to Mike presents you to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Okay. Is Todd Minix, is he an Fcdot employee? I can't remember.
Yes, I believe so. Pretty sure he is.
All right.
Yeah,
I think
He is.
I'm trying to think when I announced the 2020 award, it was actually right about the time that we were doing our offsite, and Dale Castillo was going to be part of the group then, so it was an easy thing to do. So I'm happy to reach out to Todd to give him the good news there. Calvin, I think maybe tell you the truth, like a phone number, just give him a call.
All right, yes, I will send
But we have to vote first. Let's vote first. Unless Commissioner Sidnick has done a rearguard action and he's made arrangements with the other commissioners to overturn the results of the committee and subsequent of his own nominations, which could happen.
I wouldn't put it past Sidnick. He walks the walk.
He does.
Well, let me put that to bed right away. I'll put a motion out there to accept the committee's report. And support, and I support it. That's my motion.
Motion,
Roger,
thank you.
why don't you second it?
There you go.
Roger, can you second the motion?
I'll second the motion. I wanted to sit back and see if somebody else would second it.
Well, you're the chairman, so I thought you should do
Oh,
it.
all
so.
right. Okay. Fine and dandy.
Okay, we now have a motion on the floor, seconded, to accept the results of the 2021 TAC Award Committee, selecting the Scott's Run program as the winner. All those in favor of the motion.
Scott's Run.
Scott's Run, I'm sorry, Scott's Run. Yes, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, any nay? Hearing none, the motion is agreed to unanimously. Scott's Run program is the winner of the 2021 TAC Award, and thank you very much to the committee for your good work, and appreciate also the fact that we had a competition this year, and I do hope that continues in the future.
And I might add that we were able to do this electronically. If we had had more of a dispute, it might have been difficult, but I think it's possible to do this. Of course, we clog up Calvin's inbox, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, moving on. We're about an hour behind, but as usual, important issues came up. Public comment period. Are there any members of the public here that would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. That's other business and announcements. And so first item is to talk about the January 2022 TAC meeting. We've talked previously about having a conversation with the Board of Supervisors Transportation Aides. And so what I'd like to do is, what I plan to do is reach out, and Calvin would like an email address, if you can create it, please, or collect it, or if you have it, of the email addresses of the transportation aides to the Board of Supervisors. And what I propose to do is reach out to them and let them know that we'd like to meet with them, discuss items of common concern, and also talk to them about our work plan and solicit their views. The other item we were just talking about was the safe route to public schools. We're going to do the letter on. Is that something we believe we need to do that night? I don't know how long the conversation will be. It was long tonight, but that was more because of the situation we were in, I think, rather than the substance of the program. Or it's something we could look at doing in a later meeting.
I thought the letter was to that effect. January, the next full session would be on that subject.
No, I was not planning to put that in the letter. I say that we will take it up, but I was not going to say when.
Okay, my mistake then.
Yeah, but because I want to give us flexibility to schedule it when it makes sense, and I do think the Board of Supervisors Transportation Aids is an important topic. The work plan and going to the taking that to the board. I think that what we can consider is putting an agenda, and if things sort of work out, so to speak, in fact, if it ends up being in the budget, maybe we can still look at it, but maybe some of the urgency goes away to talk about it right away. But let me actually ask Alexis, given the action we're going to take with the letter, when do you think would be the most opportune time for the TAC to take up the safe routes to schools issue again?
It doesn't sound like there's appetite to do it before our next scheduled meeting. So at this stage in the game, we can take up a letter then. I imagine that the board and the Board of Supervisors and the school board will hear about it from other sources between now and the 18th. So it might be moot by that point.
Well, not to revisit the issue, but just to a degree, we are planning to put a letter together to let the Board of Supervisors know that we're aware of it, and we hope they pay attention to it.
Yes.
So we would do that. Now, I am still open to the idea of having a work session on the 4th or the 5th if our research or your research, and working with Fcdot and FCPS, makes us better able to have a more pointed resolution. We can convene to try and do that. If we don't, then yes, the letter will be what we do before the budget closes down on the 13th. And then the question is whether we think it's important to have a immediate discussion about the safe routes to schools, or we delay that and have it. And my suggestion, if we do that, is delay it a little bit and have it as part of the bicycle and trail safety, which I know will come up later in the year.
Can we talk offline about this, Mike? I am 100% confused about what we want to do. We've said we're going to do things 10 different ways, and I have no idea what is being recommended or asked for to be done.
We're gonna write,
and I don't want to belabor it anymore tonight. I'd like to move on.
Of course. Well, just in summary, we're going to send a letter. You'll help us work out. And what we're talking about right now is the January agenda for the for the TAC itself. And so because the 18th is after the 13th, we would not be able to take action as a TAC that would influence that budget determination. So that's why the letter is all we're going to do, unless we try and have a special session, which there's not a huge amount of interest in doing. There is some, but not a huge amount. So with that, do we want to go ahead, send a letter, no work session, next talk about the safe routes to schools on January 18th, or as part of maybe the second item we talk about, the relationship, and also with the Board of Supervisors Transportation Agents. We will not be with them for an hour and a half. So we can do 2 items if we choose to do so.
Fine with me.
Okay. All right. Now let's put the safe routes to schools on the agenda as well. An update, whatever is appropriate at the time. We'll add that to the January agenda. Okay.
Can I speak to February's? Can I get
Sure.
A site visit to Dulles Airport in the pipeline?
Yes. One question I have, and you'll appreciate this because sort of you recognized earlier, do we want to dedicate one of these meetings to a site visit, or do we have separate site visits on like a Thursday? And I think there's some places you can get food and drink out by the airport, just saying. I'm joking a little bit, but I do like the idea of having site visits in the week, late afternoon, something like that, because we're already going to have to do a site visit during the day. So we can't have it when we have this meeting. So we'll have to do it some other time. And so what I'm hoping, and actually, Kevin, let me ask you if what you're suggesting is if we do a site visit, whenever we do a site visit, and then do not meet in February.
I think, yeah, when we met, that precluded it. When we did this before, we met on in lieu of a meeting, it would be a site visit. Yeah. And that was okay. So.
I'd rather do both, maybe site visits quarterly or months or something like that, no more. But what do the TAC members think?
One thing to remember with our most recent site visit is the number of members that attended. We down to what, 3 or 4 for the relay.
We had 6 of us at this site visit.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you're right. We did have a quorum. All right, you're right.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
My late arrival.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even a day visit, whether it's on a regularly scheduled date or another date, might get some drop off. But I'm okay with doing the Dulles visit on the regularly scheduled meeting date in lieu of. I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Well, I tell you, since we're talking about the February meeting, we'll have a chance to talk about that in January. Unfortunately, each time we try and finish up by 9:30, it doesn't quite work that way. And so I suspect on the January meeting with the transportation aides and with the safe routes to schools, we'll be probably about this time of night again in January, talking about what to do in February. I will just say I'm reluctant to schedule site visits in lieu of meetings. Now, that said, how often are we talking about doing it? I know you're not talking every month, but how many site visits do you think you want to have during the year in lieu of a meeting?
Well, I don't think you have to have a number for that. I think we ought to just decide whether there's one that's germane to our work plan and important and that we want to do it. If we have 2 in successive months, so be it. If we don't have any for 10 months or 11 months, so be it. I think the merit of the visit should drive our interest and concern rather than setting some kind of a quota.
I would agree with that. I'd also add for the Dulles visit, it's not too soon to have Calvin contact Mike Cooper and just say that we're looking possibly at February in case they have any objection.
Well, are commissioners interested in going to visit Dulles in February?
The middle of the
Isn't too much
snowstorm.
on the ground.
I think similar to last time, we should definitely do surveys in terms of dates because, anytime we're looking at these site visits, we're going outside of our normal evening schedule. So I think that's an important thing to try to focus on to make sure we can get as many people as possible.
Agreed. And once we have, by definition, a site visit at a time other than when we meet, because we're not going to do a site visit at 7:30 on a Tuesday night, then that time frame is still open. I have no trouble doing site visits. I would like to do site visits, but I'm very reluctant to then not have a regular scheduled meeting. So, but right now, is there interest among the TAC commissioners in going to try and visit Dulles in February?
I'd say there's interest. I would be wary of the weather, and if either coming back from Mike Cooper or from other members, they say maybe March or April, I'm okay with that too. I would site visit. You might want to be cognizant of the weather.
Okay. All right. Well, do we have I don't think we've got it on the list of potential topics. I'll absolutely add it to the list of potential topics.
Fine.
And then let's, and in fact, what we ought to do, we ought to have a list of potential site visits and Dulles and other things. So I know there's some other places we talked about going as well. So the Fcdot Operations Center. So what I'll do is I will have another section on potential site visits. And then we will be able to put those on the list and decide which if any we want to do and when we might want to do those. So if there are site visits, and Kevin, you just given us one now, Dulles, if there are others, please let me know, and we can put them on the list for consideration. Okay. Any other discussion about the sort of the January and February meeting? By the time we have the January meeting, we'll be talking about we'll have been further along in the work plan, so we might have some other ideas of things we can add based upon the conversation at that time. Okay. Next is the chair's report. I will be brief here. Been involved in the Confederate Names Task Force, met last night. I'm going to meet again next Monday as well. That's going to wrap it up. As many of you know, I mentioned that we the Confederate Names Task Force did vote to change the name of Lee Highway and Lee Jackson Memorial Highway at our meeting in November. At the meeting we had yesterday, we sent 5 names forward for each of the 2 streets to the Board of Supervisors. We haven't done it yet, but that's coming together. And the names that we went with for Route 50, it's the Little River Turnpike, Route 50, Fairfax Boulevard, and Unity Highway. The 5 names that were Cardinal Boulevard, I think was the no, I'm sorry. I should know this here. Route 50, Fairfax Boulevard, Unity Highway, and Little River Turnpike were the names that were suggested for Route 50. And for Route 29, Cardinal Highway was actually the top vote getter. Route 29, Langston Boulevard, Lincoln Douglas Highway, and Fairfax Boulevard. And I will say that actually Lincoln Douglas Highway was my suggestion, and that's Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, because of the mutual respect they had for each other during the Civil War. So those
And Cardinal comes from
what's that?
the Cardinal, that just from the bird or from
State bird.
Okay.
There was
Okay.
an understandable but deep aversion among many members of the task force to use people's names. I can't imagine.
Okay.
So those are the names that go forward. What they're going to vote next time they vote on the report. Going to include language, hopefully, that will encourage the Board of Supervisors to help with the cost that citizens will incur by the use of by this change, and also language that will talk about this being the last time. And recommend the Board of Supervisors this be the last time they make a top-down change to street names. If communities want to do it, there's a process, but that the county will have hopefully dispensed with its obligation to do this, broadly. Okay, the other thing I'll mention is there's a parking study task force that's being set up. Roger, I saw you raise your hands there.
Yeah,
This is like right up your alley. Now,
like something, isn't it? I mean,
yes, now Rachel made us aware of it. And there's not a tax seat on this commission, this working group. What's happening is the Board of Supervisors are assigning people to this parking study group. And so what Rachel suggested is that we do have TAC commissioners that would like to be part of this, to work with the Board of Supervisors, to work with the supervisor, but also we can let Rachel know that as well too, and she can help make sure that happens. So if you want to do it, Roger,
Yeah.
or anybody else.
forward my name. I would be delighted to do this.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I thought that might be the case.
Means that I probably won't get selected, but that's all right.
Well, actually, the way this supposedly is going to work is they can appoint as many people as they want. So there's no way, Roger, you should fall off the list as not quite making the cut. No matter how long the list is, you should be on it.
Yeah, it would have to be long if I'm on it, but I can always call Penny Gross's office and whine a little bit. That doesn't may or may not help.
Probably not a bad idea. What I will do is I will let Rachel know that you're interested.
Sure.
Ask her to put your name forward, but also encourage you to talk to Penny Gross's office so you come at it from both perspectives.
Oh, incidentally, are we going to have at the January or February meeting members of our supervisors, transportation staff, or whoever handles that kind of work in your supervisor's office? If so, we ought to, each one of us ought to invite that person or persons to that meeting.
Well, what I was going to do just to get the invitation out,
Okay.
was ask Calvin to send me a list of all the names of the contact information for the transportation aides.
Right, that's good.
I'll send the invitation, and then we'll ask Calvin to send it to everybody. Then you see it's been out there, and yes, I would encourage you, please, to follow up with your transportation aide. And we're going to try to, as we say, we're going to.
I'd like to give, I think it's better if you give them at least a month's notice.
That's
if
why
you
we
want
want
to
to do
come
this.
out to the meeting.
Yep.
Because you're asking them to work beyond normal work hours. And I know the people in Penny's office are willing to do that, but I don't want to spring it on 2 days before or even a week before.
Oh, no, and in fact, I agree. Calvin, if I could, can you please, sir, send me the email addresses for the Board of Supervisors, Transportation Aides tomorrow?
Yes, I will.
Okay, there you go.
I will have to double check the list again because they might have changed the.
Yeah,
Yes,
please do.
but I will.
And it'll
by
be a
tomorrow.
short invite, but we'll get it out to them. So,
I'm
okay.
sorry, one more thing,
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
Do you still want me to check with staff, about the January 5th meeting, or that's something that you're still waiting?
Well, we would like to do, and we can work offline with Alexis here tomorrow. What we'd like to do is gather more information about what's happening, and maybe we can have a conversation if necessary. She can talk to them. I think it'd be ask them if they're available, but at this just so we know. But at this point, it does not look like we're going to do it. But I can conceive of a situation where we might want to. So see if they're available on the 4th, preferably.
So you want me to check if they're available on the week of the 5th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But are you also checking their availability at the 18th as well?
Good point.
Okay, yeah, good point. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Okay, that's what I have. Let me move on to commissioners' updates. And for that, I'll go through the list as usual in the order in which your name was called. At large, Linda Sperling. Anything you'd like to add? Maybe she's had to put the kids to bed.
Doesn't look like she's on.
Yeah, I think she's had to put the kids to bed. Kevin, Commissioner Morse.
Just briefly, from my aforementioned meeting with the West Springfield Police Commander, slightly related to transportation and that it concerns your automobile if you have one. Theft of catalytic converters has raised its ugly head again. And what was new to me is how quickly they can do this. They apparently, within 2 minutes, 2 people can have your car jacked up and working at opposite ends, get that catalytic converter out of there. So just be aware. And if they asked if you see anybody when you're driving along that's underneath the car that possibly doesn't look right, that it shouldn't be, to notify law enforcement. That's all I have.
Well, there was somebody I saw an article, they trying to steal the catalytic converter and the car fell on them and they got crushed. So anybody who's
always like the happy endings.
Absolutely. Anything else to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
I've talked enough as always. Commissioner Westenhoff, not with us this evening here. Roger, anything to add?
Yes. Do any of you get this little blurb that comes called the Tyson's Reporter? I would commend it to you. TYSONSREPORTER.com. Comes every day free. And I take a look at it. That's all you need is something else in your inbox. And most of the time, I just move it quickly to the delete. However, tonight it has 2 really good articles in it that I did. I'm going to read them before I go to bed. The first one is Fairfax County roads weren't made for walking, but planning leaders want to fix that. Interesting article. And another one, estimated cost of the I-495 pedestrian bridge climbs amid rising Tyson's property values. You get some of these. And in this era of citizen journalism, and there's so much garbage out there, it's these local things and the Annandale blog, and there may be others where you get some of this reporting on things that are related to transportation or land use or anything else. But it's really very much local yokel stuff, and you're not going to find it anyplace else. So I would commend that to you. And I do plan to look at these before I go to bed because they sound interesting, especially in light of our meeting last month.
There we go. Sounds good. Good reading. Anything else, Roger?
That's it.
Okay, appreciate it. Let's see. Commissioner Sidnick, Pete, anything to add?
I'd like to say no, but unfortunately, apparently the discussions on Richmond Highway are proceeding as far as reducing it from 13 lanes. They've only got it down to 12 at this point. So that may reissue itself. Just a heads up for folks. But some good news, George Washington Memorial Parkway from Alexandria down to the George Washington Circle, it has been put on a road diet. And there was some initial pushback and a bunch of people all ticked off, but it seems to be working very well. There's a couple intersections, Bellevue and Bellhaven, that still need some tweaking, but it seems to be actually working. So traffic is slowing down. So we shall see.
Okay, we shall see. We shall see.
Yep.
Okay. Alexis, I saw her log off. Probably somebody else had to put some kids to bed. So we'll pass her. Commissioner Hancock, Jeremy, anything for you? You have anything to add?
I need to put myself to bed, but I do have one item. The county started an active transportation plan for the West Falls Church Metro, which splits both Providence and the Drainsville district. I think at a high level, it's an important step for the county to start thinking about land use and transportation issues beyond just the four corners of a development. It's very early in the process. The first meeting was last night, and there's going to be a series of meetings into next year and some public meetings. But part of the scope of work, which hasn't been finalized yet, but the current draft includes a briefing to the TAC. And so just a heads up that will happen probably sometime in the spring.
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I remember communicating about that now. I've gotten my brain's getting kind of fuzzy at the end of the night here, but it is on the list of potential discussion topics, third bullet. So it is one we're tracking. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Anything else?
That's it. Thanks.
Fantastic. Eric Thiel was not here this evening. Same thing with David Skiles. So we now give the position of honor once again for our vice chair to fill us with any other last bits of information and then make the long-awaited motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion is made and seconded.
Second.
10:37 p.m. 10:38 p.m. Another minute. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say no. Better not. TAC is adjourned 10:38 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Got some actions to do. Have a good evening.
Mike,
You all have a good night.
Be safe,
two
everyone.
words to leave you with. Sully District. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, okay.
I think you know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. We'll hang on for a minute then as people drop off.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Okay, sure.